Is that okay? Sounded a bit echoey. Okay, so I'll try again. Welcome everybody to this meeting of the Cabinet to be held today, Tuesday the 10th of December. I'll just introduce the Cabinet here. Myself, that's Carol Pattison, Deputy Leader of the Council, Moses Crook, Councillor Turner, Councillor Kendrick, Councillor Pinnock, Councillor Ahmed, Councillor Hawkins and Councillor Addy. We have no apologies today. So can I now then move on to minutes of the previous meeting? Sorry, just before I do that, I should also just let people know that there are two members of the press sitting at the back. We have members of the public this side, officers this side, and members are in between. Yes, minutes of the previous meeting. Can we approve those as an accurate record? Yes? All in favour? Thank you. Any declarations of interest from anyone from the Cabinet? No? Okay. Admission of the public. Obviously, this is a public meeting and all items will be held in public, but for items 8 and 9, we have got some exempt information that if we need to discuss that, we would have to go into private session. So can I just check with, before I'll come to you, Councillor Cooper, but can I just check that members have read, or members of the Cabinet have read those papers? Okay, Councillor Cooper.
Is exempt information that the two items are separated, so the information is debated during the open session, and then the items which are exempt are then debated at the end of the meeting, so to allow the public to be present. Is that what's going to happen in this case?
No, Councillor. They're here for as part of the report, which members of the Cabinet have read, and so when they will have that information in mind when we are discussing those particular items. They will not be held separately. It won't be discussed separately.
The public are here to listen to the debate on those items. Those items can be talked about by Cabinet members without revealing information which is commercially sensitive. So those items, I would imagine, will be held in public for 8 and 9.
Yes, certainly. Those items are. It's only those the particular information on the particular yellow pages of those items that will not be presented in public, because that is commercially sensitive. Yeah. Thank you. The next item is deputations and petitions, but we have none today. So we now move on to questions by members of the public. Now, can I just say, we are, by the Constitution, allowed 15 minutes for this item, which I think certainly members of the public and others will be aware that that isn't sufficient for you to be able to be heard. So what I intend to do is to ask, there's 6 questions to be asked. I would like to ask each of you to read out your questions as you've submitted them, and then Councillor Addy will respond to all 6 at the same time. You will then all 6 or all 5 of you be enabled to ask a supplementary, and again, if you we'll take those as a whole. And then Councillor Addy will respond to those. But that's the best way, I think, to organise this meeting so that you all do get a chance to put your questions and to ask a supplementary. Okay? So can I believe, Mike Foster, you have 2 questions to start.
What do I press? Press nothing. Good afternoon. The 2 questions in relation to staffing issues. In relation to agenda item 8 under 2.9F of the report, the Cabinet is proposing to abandon the West Yorkshire Pension Fund for transferring employees. So what pension arrangements are on offer instead, or will there be none? That's question number 1. In relation to question 2, in relation to agenda item 8 under 3.3.6, the report states the following: the transferee employer will need to inform the transferor council of any measures that it proposes regarding transferring employees following the transfer. What other measures can the provider introduce, and have there been any discussions about that, and has the council sought any guarantees about staffing levels other than what is mentioned in 4.10?
Okay, thank you, Mike Foster. Can I ask Avalon Rawling to put her question?
Thank you, yes. In relation to agenda item 8, the whole case for privatisation hinges on the council's assertion that the homes are not viable. But we've already seen an example of a serious omission in regards to the income, circa £1 million, that's due to the homes. Another serious flaw is that the financial basis for the proposed privatisation of the care homes relies on 1 single year of data. That doesn't account for one-off expenditure, trends and exceptional circumstances. A multi-year analysis should be conducted in line with good business analysis practice. An example of a comprehensive analysis of both ongoing costs and the estimated private sector contributions I attached to my original email that I sent last week. The case, as presented in the Cabinet report, fails to take into account all the relevant information in order to ensure a sound and evidence-based decision, and it challenges the reasons for recommendations on bullet point 2, which states that the homes represent a comparative loss of more than £0.8 million per annum of direct costs, in brackets, and may well require further capital investment in the near future. So on that basis, my question is, will the Cabinet therefore vote to proceed with delegating authority to the officers to proceed with privatisation, despite there being insufficient proof that the stated savings can in fact be made?
Thank you, Avalon. Can I ask Colette Senior to put her question?
Yep, thank you. So both Castle Grange and Claremont House offer an excellent standard of care already. Has Kirklees looked at alternative ways which would keep the homes open and still under Kirklees Council? And if so, why are these not viable?
Okay, thank you very much. Sarah Blackborough, would you like to put your question?
I'd like to draw your attention to Kirklees Council's core values and behaviours. Kindness. We are kind so that our behaviour makes each other feel included, happy and well. We work with each other and are friendly, considerate and appreciative. We do with, not to, showing kindness to each other and our citizens. Inclusion. We provide equal access to opportunities and resources for all people. We achieve inclusion by removing barriers, discrimination and prejudice. We value and promote a culture of inclusion and diversity. Pride. We work with pride to achieve positive outcomes for colleagues, citizens and our places. We have self-respect, dignity and take satisfaction from our achievements and those of our colleagues. We are proud of what we do as individuals, together as a council and together with our citizens and places. Our behaviours are honest, positive, flexible, respectful, communicative and supportive. Can you explain to me then, Councillor Addy, how this proposal fits in with the Council's core values and behaviours?
Thank you, Sarah. And could I now ask Donna Mallinson to speak?
If Kirklees is successful in disposing, as they say, of the homes Kirklees claim they will be... If Kirklees is successful in disposing of the homes, Kirklees claim they will be disposed of as going concerns, and the transfer to an alternative provider will ensure will not ensure continuation of care, but as there will be no care contracts or requirement to maintain current costs, continuation of care cannot be ensured. So my question is, will the Cabinet vote to proceed with privatisation despite there being no guarantee of continuation of care for residents in these homes?
Thank you, Donna. Please can I ask Councillor Addy now to respond to those 6 questions?
We all recognise there are big pressures on adult social care across the country. In proposing the transfer of the 2 homes as going concerns to a quality provider, the Council is doing its best to ensure there is continuity of care for the current residents, while also ensuring there is care for the many thousands of other people the Council supports. This is not a decision we are taking lightly, but feels a better option than that which was proposed previously, namely to close them. I'll take your questions in order as you ask them. Mike, as part of the proposed transfer of existing staff, it will be transferred under the Transfer Undertakings Protection of Employment Regulations, known as 2P. This means their contractual terms and conditions of employment and continuity of service will transfer to the new employer. The report specifies the standard 2P pension protection for existing employees as required by law. This means that while the employee's pension rights must be protected under the Pensions Act 2004 and the Transfer 2P of Employment Pension Protection Regulations 2005, they will not retain the right to remain in the local government pension scheme. But the potential new operators have indicated they do not wish to join the local government pension scheme, but they have all expressed the importance of engaging directly with staff to facilitate a seamless transfer under 2P regulations and do offer typical private sector pension provision. In regards to your second question, following initial proposals and bids, officers have been engaging with potential new operators on a range of factors, including any proposed changes that the new operator intends to make. Throughout the process, officers are ensuring that the new provider has experience in managing care homes, in delivering high-quality care services for people with dementia, and has experience in ensuring an effective transition for staff while maintaining continuity of care for service users. The quality criteria for evaluating bids includes the bidder's experience and their ability to maintain high standards of care, with a focus on quality over price. They will therefore need to set the right staffing levels in line with CQC requirements. The Council has also listened to the concerns of families and the trade unions about staffing and has communicated that the 2P process will protect existing staff's employment terms and conditions. It will be for the purchaser of the care homes to propose any measures, as referred to, regarding affected staff, and there must be consultation with appropriate representatives, such as unions, in good time before the transfer date. Measures are usually changes to working practices. So, for example, that could be as simple as an employee's pay date. Avalon. The financial analysis which forms the proposals for the transfer of both care homes is based on a multi-year analysis of historical financial performances data alongside future projections on financial viability. This includes long-term trends, capital investment needs, variations on income levels and other exceptional items that impact on the financial outlook of these services. The question asserts that there's been an omission in regards to income. Fees and rates have been factored into the financial calculations. For assurance, Council officers have previously shared this information alongside additional financial analysis with family members via a dedicated care homes finance meeting held with family members on the 20th of November 2023. I believe you were there. Colette. A range of options have been appraised, and these are set out in section 6 of the Cabinet report, so you can see those all there. Sarah, The proposal aligns with the Council's core values and behaviours through several ways, including prioritising quality over cost in the provider decision process, prioritising the well-being of residents and staff through continuity of care and through TUPE arrangements, taking an inclusive approach through extensive consultation and making decisions that achieve positive outcomes by ensuring the homes continue to operate and provide high-quality care under new management. I feel we have been communicative, supportive, honest and respectful. Donna, yes, disposal is an unfortunate technical term that crops up in these things. Throughout this process, officers are ensuring that the new provider has experience in managing care homes, has experience in delivering high-quality care services for people with dementia, and has experience in ensuring an effective transition for staff whilst maintaining continuity of care for the residents. In response to your point about contracts, there will be a contract in place with the new care home provider. Each care home signs up to our overarching contracts for the provision of personal care services in a care home, and each resident will be transferred to the new provider with a placement agreement. This placement agreement is for an indefinite period and states the care home is the resident's main residence. These will all transfer to the new provider and form part of the new arrangements.
Thank you, Councillor Addy. Can I ask the five of the members of the public if you wish to ask a supplementary? And well, I'll take you in the order that you spoke before. So, Mike, if you'd like to put one first.
Yes, thank you. On the first question in relation to the West Yorkshire Pension Fund, Councillor Addy, I would like you to confirm to this public cabinet meeting that what that means for the staff is that their pension entitlement will be a lot worse than their current entitlement, which might, of course, explain why you described this proposal as potentially offering Kirklees Council reputational damage, because this campaign will, of course, want to publicise that staff are going to be on worse conditions in terms of their pensions. But can you confirm that they will, in fact, be on worse pensions? The second question, in relation to measures, I'm pleased that Councillor Pinnock is here in the meeting today, because she will well recall when I was a Unison representative, when there was only one show in town when this council transferred employees into the employment of Jarvis in the PFI schools, that a whole number of measures were introduced by Jarvis purely by serving notice, which led to an industrial action dispute. I'm not sure that you were aware that these measures can include an attack on holiday pay, an attack on sickness pay, and other benefits that this council should be proud of, which employees enjoy. Can you confirm that those measures will not be part of the agenda that you have with your selected private providers?
Thank Councillor Addy. I will take the other supplementaries if that's okay. Yeah. Avalon, did you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you. So, Councillor Addy, you are absolutely right. I was at the finance meeting last November, which related to the proposal that was underway at the time to close the homes, not to privatise them. So I would expect that the business analysis should have been repeated in view of a different proposal. So and the other point I'd like to make is that I've got the notes in front of me from that meeting, and at no point was a historic or a future projection involved in that. Those numbers also referred to 1 year's data, and at the time we were given the budgeted figures for the expenditure for the care homes. In this new report this year, for this year's proposal of privatisation, the numbers that we've been given are for 2023-24 full financial year. We've been given operating costs, and we've been given the potential liability of the council to cover 80 beds at the average market rate for dementia beds across Kirklees. So I have to say that your assertion there has not been made public. We haven't had that transparency that you refer to. So I would like you please, my subsequent question therefore is, can you please publish that business data that has not been shared with the campaign team or on the Kirklees Council website?
Thank you, Avalon. Colette, have you a supplementary?
Yep. So you're right. Option 6, it does say that the options, you have looked at other options. 1, do nothing. 2, transfer. 3, close. There's nothing there about looking at running the homes so they are running profitably and not at a loss. We have managed to evidence that the finances don't add up. The numbers have been over-exaggerated. I think there is ways to run the home. My question to you is, why have we not looked at how to run the homes correctly?
Thank you, Colette. Sarah, have you got a further question?
I do, yeah. Under the Equality Act 2010, dementia is classed as a disability. Councillor Addy, please can you give a response to the view that targeting these homes for closure and privatisation is an act of discrimination against the vulnerable and disabled residents?
Thank you. And finally, Donna, do you have a question?
It seems that Kirklees are prioritising commercial interest rather than the care and well-being of the residents. How can we be confident of any continuation of care when we don't know who the potential new provider or providers will be? We can't look into the history, we can't look into their ability to care for residents with complex dementia and care needs. Because we can't look into this, how can we be sure that our loved ones are going to be cared for as they need to be cared for and are cared for currently?
Thank you. Councillor Addy, would you like to respond?
So, Mike, as you probably well know, that the local government pension scheme is an excellent scheme. It provides an excellent level of support. Unfortunately, often the private market doesn't match that, but they will be offered typical private sector pension provision. As to number 2, your question was about what other things may change. Well, in our negotiations, obviously everybody will be transferred under 2P, and into the future nobody can guarantee what will or won't be on those terms in 10 years' time, same as we couldn't as a council. Number 3, looking to you, Avalon. I understand that we have taken a comprehensive view of the finances, and if there are any finances that we haven't looked at there, I will send them to you, but I believe we have looked at them all, and I will go back to officers and ask if there's something in what you said that we haven't shared data-wise that's shareable, that's not commercially sensitive. And number 4 is Colette. Sorry, Colette, I think you said we've exaggerated numbers, exaggerated figures. All the information is factual and correct that is in these reports. The Equality Act does look at disability. This is not... No, I'm talking to Sarah now. You say we were exaggerating things in the report, but we aren't. So
why have we not looked at other options where the care homes are being run correctly?
Well, that would suggest that they're not being run correctly now. So, I mean, I think they are, and your praise of them suggests that they're being run okay as they are. They're run to the benefit of the residents. We can all understand where the costs come that we don't have in the private sector. The council is legally bound to meet things that the private sector aren't, as Mike Foster's just raised. Sarah, this is not discrimination. What about the other thousands of people we support? You know, we are looking to shape the care market into the future. We have to look at what provision is there across the care. And we know that we can find a good provider. If, when all the bids are in, there isn't a quality provider, we'll have to come back. But we do believe that we have interest from quality providers who are happy to take on these homes. That's not discrimination, that's continuity of care and care across day services and all the other services of care we provide as a council. We are shaping the market and we are delivering the care that the private sector does not deliver as well, and letting them deliver the residential care. Item 6, question 6. We are definitely not putting commercial interests over the residents. We can't afford to carry on with the homes as they are, and we are looking at quality of care over any financial bids. So the final factors will be the quality of care, not the bottom line figure that anybody bids.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Addy. Can I now move on to item 7, which is questions by elected members. I have got a list of members who have already indicated that they wish to speak, which is Councillor Lawson, Joe Lawson, sorry, it's John and Joe Lawson, sorry. Councillor Bramwell, Councillor Scott and Councillor Munro. If there's anybody else who wants to raise a question, could we? Yeah. We've got you. I've got you. I beg your pardon, I can't read Andrea's writing. It's Councillor Moore, not Councillor Munro. So, okay, I will now start with Councillor Joe Lawson.
Not here.
Oh, she's not here. Sorry? Oh, right, okay. In that case, Councillor Bramwell.
I'm here to comment and ask a question regarding the Council's proposal to reduce the size of wheelie bins by 25% from 240 litres to 180 litres. The initiative comes at a time when residents are also facing an anticipated increase in council tax. As we approach the holiday season, the ongoing cost of living and energy crisis are placing additional strain on our communities. The Tussle Trust has actually reported distributing over 106,000 emergency food parcels in Yorkshire, with more than a third of them going to children. Councillor Deputy Leader Moses Crook stated that smaller bins will encourage more recycling and contribute to our climate commitments. I don't believe that this is a priority of this decision at all, contributing to our climate commitments, and is solely an issue on budget. I also argue the fact that if Councillor Crook genuinely believes that this will encourage more recycling, then I question his judgment and knowledge of the North Kirklees and the residents and the social needs that they face. Needs like the ability to provide food, gas and electric to their children are their priority, so I would like to highlight two critical concerns. Firstly, fly tipping. Fly tipping remains a significant issue across Kirklees, with severe instances in the north of Kirklees. The combination of increased fly tipping and reduced access to waste disposal services only exacerbate this social need. Second, the proposed reduction in bin sizes raises serious questions about the council's understanding, again, of the needs of the residents in my ward and throughout North Kirklees. Sorry, I'm unwell. Throughout the north of Kirklees. Implementing such a change alongside a council tax increase to address the budget shortfalls which stem from decisions made by Cabinet is deeply concerning. I pose the following question: why should my residents and residents across Kirklees continue to physically, emotionally and financially pay for the council's mistakes? And what concrete plans does the council have in place to effectively address the issue of fly tipping, especially considering the likelihood that the proposal may fail to achieve its intended goals?
There's a lot of questions in there, and I think it's a question of the budget, and potentially Councillor Crook, as he was, or Councillor Crook could answer some of your question as well, and as far as that you referred to him in what you just said. But I will ask Councillor Turner to speak first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As you will be well aware, the budget is on the agenda later on today, and if you hang around and listen to what's going to be said there, this is a draft budget. This is a draft budget that is going out to consultation with the public. Once that consultation is complete, and once we have what we call the final settle from government, we will then produce a final budget for submission to council in March. Until then, this is a draft out for consultation. We will take those views on board once the consultation finishes and make amendments to the budget as it stands where we see fit.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Crook.
Sorry, I didn't know which button I was supposed to press. Thank you, Councillor Bramwell, for the question. I did sign off a press release about the proposal in this paper today about the budget to be consulted on, but it's not actually in my cabinet portfolio. It's in Councillor Ahmed's portfolio. He was unavailable on Friday and there was a request for a press release. I would say this proposal has been put forward by officers not just to save money but also to reflect our commitment to recycling and to improving or reducing the environmental burden that we impose. There are other policy changes coming through nationally around responsibility for manufacturers to reduce their waste and to take cost into account, which should reduce the amount of landfill and incinerator waste that we collect. There are also changes to recycling legislation coming forward. As Councillor Turner has identified, this is a proposal to be consulted on. When we've listened to the consultation, there'll be decisions made about which proposals go forward into the final budget, which will be voted on in full council in due course. I would say that other councils have moved to smaller bin sizes, so this isn't exactly a maverick suggestion from officers. And I would also say that we can benchmark the impact of other councils' proposals and changes to feed into the consultation that will be forthcoming. Yeah, I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. Councillor John Lawson, can you put your question? Thank you. Sorry, have you got a supplementary?
Yeah, so just going back to Councillor Turner when he's speaking about consultation, obviously I've got a massive issue when it comes to consultation and this council, to be honest with you. I mean, when we look at the closures and the consultation that was committed by Kirklees Council to these closures, I don't actually believe that it's been listened to at all. So when it comes to consultation on this particular issue, are the findings of that consultation going to be made public? And also going back to Councillor Crook, when he talked about the fact that other councils have already moved to this, okay, that's absolutely fine, and I'm not saying that smaller bin sizes shouldn't absolutely happen, or there are ways and means of doing it. What I'm asking is, does the council have a plan when it comes to fly tipping? Because I did ask this question, a similar question 6 months ago when we started seeing an increase in fly tipping. We're only going to continue to see an increase in fly tipping. I don't see any plans, and the only feedback as an elected official that I've had from council is that you want us to motivate our residents, and I still ask you 6 months later, how?
I think, again, there's two questions there. I'll just ask Councillor Turner to come back on the consultation, and perhaps Councillor Ahmed, you could just very briefly, because we've only got 30 minutes for this item, respond to the fly tipping issue. Thank you.
The results of the consultation, as with all consultation, will be made public and in part of the budget process. The problem will be, as in previous years, and as I said, this comes up later on, this is quite a weighted document, and I would encourage, and I'm going to say this later on, encourage members of the public to read it and make valuable, insightful comments on that, because that is really helpful to us. But it is challenging, I know, to read it. But we will take on board the results of that consultation, and there will be changes to this budget. I'm absolutely sure of that.
Councillor Ahmed.
Thank you, Councillor Bramwell. Fly tipping is a constant problem with every single council, and we're no exception to that. And we do operate a zero tolerance policy, which is to prosecute anyone that we actually, well, it's getting the perpetrators to get the evidence to be able to do that. When we do get the evidence, and we do have it, then we will prosecute. We don't always get the evidence, and it's not commercial fly tipping, it's domestic fly tipping, where people are coming in and actually tipping in areas. And continuously, it's a difficult task, but we are continually putting investment in there to make sure that our performance is good in terms of clearing the fly tipping. But this is a constant problem which is not going to go away with Kirklees or any other council, but we can actually try and make sure that we can continue with the deterrence, and also to make sure that we continue to try and take action as soon as we can.
Sorry, you can't have a third. No, I'm sorry, you've had your supplementary question. Councillor Brammer, I'm going to move on. We've only got half an hour for members' questions. So, Councillor John Lawson, would you like to put your question?
Thank you, Leader. Again, on grey bins, where I understand from Councillor Turner's response, we're in a pre-consultation period. What I would like to just comment, though, on and ask is whether there would be an element of voluntary adoption of the grey bins for those who would find it useful to have a smaller grey bin, leaving those who can't use a smaller grey bin, those with small families. For example, if I cast my mind back a little while ago to when I had a small family, yeah, we needed a larger bin. It was as straightforward as that. So is there going to be an element of voluntary adoption of this smaller bin?
I think I can answer that. It exists already. If people want a smaller bin, I'm looking over there for a confirmation, but it certainly used to be the policy they could have a smaller bin if they wanted one. And a double bin if they really need two bins. Supplementary, sorry.
Okay, and to facilitate this move to smaller bins, we're going to have an improvement in the variety of things that we can recycle. Will that run alongside the adoption of the smaller bins in that wider sense?
Councillor Ahmed, could you respond to that?
I think in terms of the recycle bins, there is no proposal to reduce those. The emphasis is to try and make sure that people behaviours and attitudes, and there's going to be an effective communication strategy that needs to be there to try and ensure that people can and do recycle in their green bins. Often green bins are not filled to their full capacity, and the emphasis is to do that. So the improvements will be there, and I take on board the voluntary adoption of small bins, along with ensuring that we can actually get the messages out in terms of what can go into the recycle bins, and what a lot of the items which are in the grey bins can be recycled. And it's about the behavioural changes that we need to make with individuals. Prior to having recycle bins, people had to make those behavioural changes as well. And now that they're there, people are very accustomed to it. So we're hoping that with the reduction, there'll be a greater emphasis in terms of making sure that people can recycle.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmed. Can I ask Councillor Scott to put her question?
Thank you, Chair. I was going to come in on the dementia care, but what I'll do is I'll wait for that item. Because we're talking around the grey bin issue and reduction on size, it's just a simple general question that I want to ask. What are you going to do? You're going to replace 160,000 bins. Now, where's your cleaner, greener there? So what are you going to do with the ones that you're going to collect in? Are you going to burn them, bury them, or just put them on the side of the road? I really do not understand your concept behind this and the costing, because when you talk about cleaner, greener and energy efficiencies and all this, you are just creating a massive carbon footprint there. So I'd like the portfolio holder to put a freeze on that and go back and think about what you're about to do, because you're going to cost the council taxpayers of Kirklees a fortune for this stupidity.
Sorry, Councillor Ahmed, would you like to respond?
I just re-emphasise what Councillor Turner and Councillor Crook has mentioned, is that this is a draft budget. It's a consultation exercise, and we're here to listen to the proposals that have been put forward, and we will be listening and looking at all of those. And the issue with the replacement of bins will be there, because every tonne of waste that we don't recycle will result in the reduction in the amount of waste that we put into the grey bins. And this will generate savings, and it will cover the cost of the new bins. But we're here to listen, and we're here to make sure that that consultation is carried out and to take those on board. But thank you for your comments, Councillor Scott.
Any supplementary, Councillor Scott?
As I said, I did have another question on another item, but I'll wait for the item. I think it's fair.
Thank you for that. I should have said it would be helpful if members would, if they got questions on specific items on the agenda, that it would be helpful if they waited until then. So, Councillor Paul Moore.
Given that the proposal to reduce household bin sizes appears to be primarily a cost-cutting measure, rather than a comprehensive strategy for waste reduction, how does the Labour Cabinet justify this approach, particularly when it will lead to increased fly tipping, public health risks, and disproportionately impact larger families and vulnerable residents? Additionally, what steps will the Council take to ensure that any waste reduction strategy is both effective and fair without placing undue burdens on those least able to cope?
Councillor Ahmed, would you like to respond?
I think a lot of the points that have just been raised by Councillor Moore have been raised in the previous question, so I don't intend to repeat on all of those. But in terms of the impact on larger families, there will also be an impact on smaller family households as well. So the aim is to try and make sure that we can actually have a balanced approach in terms of what would be the right and the appropriate size, because there are large families as well as smaller households which are not filling those bins. And it's not just a cost-cutting exercise, as Councillor Moses did mention earlier, it's also a recycling and a behavioural attitude exercise as well for people.
Is there a supplementary, Councillor Moore?
Right, so, yeah, no, I've heard the comments. We're here to listen. And my recent experience of consultation with Kirklees Council is kind of out of kilter with that. So what we've seen with Dewsbury Sports Centre is over 90% of people said, we don't want it closing, we don't want it closing. And what happened? You closed it. With Dewsbury Library, the consultation again, I think it was about 2/3 of people said it should stay where it is so it can carry on delivering for local people in different ways. And you agreed to move it. So forgive me, I don't have a lot of confidence when I hear this, we're here to listen. So I suppose my question is, how does the Labour Cabinet plan to engage with communities moving forward to ensure that their concerns are heard and considered before implementing such significant changes?
Just to respond on all consultations, yes, we do listen, and where appropriate. I mean, consultation does not mean that we necessarily have to do exactly what somebody responds to us. We have to take those views and into consideration when making the final decision, which is what we do on all consultation. We will do on this one as well. Thank you. Councillor Safdar.
This government, I hope the ruling party is working very closely with local members and cabinet members sat here. So this government has promised £1 billion for councils with a large number of special needs children. So will this send extra funding? Will it be seen by local schools? Or will it just be there to cover the debts that exist in most councils? Now, one of my incredibly hard-working head teachers in my ward, Miss Emma Barker from Netherton Infant School, who's doing a tremendously impressive job despite difficult circumstances and a rising number of special needs children, she's agonising over her school budget next year. Sadly, they don't have the money to cover the basics. They can't put a qualified teacher in front of every class. They're now considering unqualified teachers. They're considering now just putting teaching assistants instead of teachers to save money. And this is taking place across my ward, across the authority. So this is both morally and educationally wrong. That head teachers are working extra hours, unpaid, and are now going down this difficult route. Do the Cabinet and indeed the ruling party know how critical the situation is? Now let's move on to solutions. I do admit that I sympathise. We're in a difficult financial position post-Brexit, and we are. But can the Cabinet and the leader of the Council, indeed all people in charge, the leadership team, take these serious concerns to the Department of Education in London, and can we lobby and try to get some funding for the special needs SENCO teachers and head teachers here in Kirklees?
Councillor Pinnock, would you like to respond?
Councillor Safdar, we are fully aware of how difficult the situation is for schools, how difficult the situation is for in the special needs sector in relation to schools as well. Myself and Councillor Kendrick regularly have meetings with schools, have meetings with the council and other stakeholders, so we're fully aware of how difficult things are. We very much welcome the funding that's been proposed. My understanding is we're yet to work through how that's going to impact and where it's going to impact the most. So when that information comes to light, you'll definitely be made aware of what the implications are going to be and how it's going to positively impact in the areas that we're talking about today. I'm more than happy to meet with you, spend time with you, whatever the situation is, so that when I'm aware of the information and I'm in a position to share that information, I can do so with yourself.
And I will just add to that, we are in regular dialogue with government and have been for several years on the needs of the special needs education in schools. We are already receiving additional funding and have been again for several years, and it's part of a programme called the Safety Net, which we are participating in with government. They've been giving us some additional money other than the money that the Councillor Pinnock's just referred to. We have got the 2 new special schools coming online, which will be operational very soon. We've got additional places in schools, and we've got satellite places in schools as well for children with special educational needs. We have got a full programme of improvement in terms of special needs education, which has been in place for several years and is very successful, I will have to, and we're receiving praise from government for what we've been doing and from other authorities that wish to follow suit on what we're doing. So have you got a supplementary, Councillor Safdar?
Yeah, apologies, it's slightly different supplementary, but I just yesterday.
Slightly different. I mean, your supplementary is meant to be on the response that you've just heard.
Well, I'm sorry, but some funeral directors in the Muslim community have some very, very serious concerns about the space up at Hay Lane. So I've had decided to attend many funerals. No,
I'm sorry, that's a separate question. That's not a supplementary. If you wish to have a separate question, you will have to join the queue.
Yeah, well, it's an important question. Yes, so I've decided to visit.
Councillor Cooper did indicate that he wished to speak.
Yeah, and so I've heard the responses about grey bins, and a very good question from Councillor Cathy Scott about what you're going to do with all the old bins, and perhaps we could have a competition from residents as part of the consultation as to what they suggest we do with the old bins. But my question is the capital investment that will be required to purchase those bins. Obviously, there will be an expected payback period in terms of the savings made, and I'm just wondering what that payback period is likely to be, so we're able to judge whether the use of the funding that the council is making could be better spent elsewhere.
Sorry, do you, Councillor Ahmed? Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Cooper. I don't have that information at hand with me, but I can get that information to you in terms of providing that. But I haven't got that information at hand with me.
Is there a supplementary, Councillor Cooper? Sorry, did you say no? I wasn't. No. Oh, sorry. Okay, Councillor Safdar.
Yes, again, I sympathise with the difficult financial position the council is in, but I've had regular communication with many in the Huddersfield Muslim community regarding concerns on burial spaces. Sadly, we've had a spate of awful bugs and many different health conditions that have ravaged the community, and it's been a tearful few weeks. So what we've noticed is we're now in the overflow area at Hay Lane Cemetery. So what are the future, obviously you might have that answer to hand, but I would appreciate some contact with myself, my ward colleagues, and indeed my colleague Andrew Cooper as well, to maybe give us that reassurance and reassure the Muslim community that Hay Lane does have maybe a plan B. Are the fields nearby going to be utilised at some stage? Also, we've got real serious concerns from our friends from different places of worship, from different faiths, especially the Muslim community in Dewsbury and Batley. So could we have an update on the situation in Dewsbury and Batley regarding burial spaces? Thank you.
Is that a question about Hay Lane or Dewsbury and Batley? There is no specific update to Dewsbury and Batley other than I've given recently, in as far as, yes, we have got some money which we intend to spend in the north of Kirklees to ensure that there are continuing burial spaces for Muslim burials, and we will do the same at Hay Lane. I haven't got the actual detail in terms of what how many spaces are needed in Hay Lane, but we can let you have that. Sorry, is there a supplementary on that?
Yes. We'd appreciate a letter, some communication to myself and Joe Lawson and Andrew Cooper. Yeah.
That's absolutely fine. I understand, Yusra, you have a question also.
Yeah, I do have a question. I'd like to ask Councillor Munir Ahmed regarding, can you tell me how much it will cost to reduce the bin size for 160,000 residents? I want the figure, please.
Councillor Ahmed.
I think that question's just been asked by Councillor Cooper as well, in terms of, have I got this wrong? He's just asked about the replacement of the bins, which is the 160,000 new grey bins, and I haven't got that information at hand, but I will get that and I can forward you that information.
Have you a supplementary, Councillor Yusra?
Yeah, I do, because if you don't know the figure of how much it costs, how did you come to this decision in the first place?
Can I just say we haven't come to a decision. So this is out for consultation. The figures are in there in the budget proposals as to how much cost, what the savings would be over this year and next year, which amount to a substantial amount, but they are proposals, and we haven't come to a decision. So thank you. I will now, that's the end of councillor questions, and we have gone over the half hour. That's oh, sorry, there is John Taylor. I've ignored. No, okay, John Taylor is online, but he did not have a question. So we have gone over the half hour. We do allocate to that particular item. So we will now move on to item 8, which is the future of dementia care provision. Can I again just check with all members that you have read the exempt information that does accompany this particular item? Everyone's nodding there. So first off, I will ask Councillor Addy to present the report. Thank you.
On the 26th of September 2023, Cabinet approved a consultation process to commence on the future of the dementia care home provision at Castle Grange and Claremont House. At the time, the report sought approval from the Council to withdraw from long stay residential care market and focus its direct care delivery in other parts of the care market. A consultation process ran on from October to January. The report presented at Cabinet on the 12th of March this year recommended that following approaches made by the council, to the council by independent sector operators, officers would wish to explore potential opportunities to transfer their homes into the independent sector. These recommendations were approved by Cabinet. Following an indication during informal consultations with potential providers that there may be an appetite from the private sector to acquire the 2 dementia care homes as going concerns, Cabinet authorised progression of this process at the meeting in October. Since that decision, officers have undertaken consultation for 6 weeks with service users and their relatives regarding the transfer option, and meetings have also taken place with staff and trade unions to update them on the process. The sites have been marketed to those parties who had expressed an interest, and several others who have approached the council when the Cabinet determined that offers should be sought, plus information lodged with Kirklees Care Association. Recognising the Cabinet decision to pursue further the issue of transfer of the homes as going concerns, further consultations have been undertaken, this time directed at existing service users and their relatives and staff and their trade unions. To this end, a series of one-to-one in-person conversations were held with service users' families where people could highlight any concerns about a transfer to a private care provider. There are 45 residents residing across both Castle Grange and Claremont House. All residents' families were contacted and offered one-to-one consultation meetings with officers, of which 31 service users' families took up the offer. The themes captured through the families' consultations include concerns about the new providers, assurances that the care homes will remain as dementia residential homes, concerns about the quality of service should another provider take over, impact on staff and therefore continuity of service for residents, and concerns about potential increases in fee rates to residents. The current options being explored by officers are as follows: do nothing and continue as is, recognising the homes cost significantly more to operate than they generate in income through fees charged. 2. Pursue the transfer of the 2 long-stay homes as a going concern business. The preferred option here, and one which brings savings with minimal disruption to residents and their families and a transfer of employment arrangements for staff. And 3. Close the homes, a previously rejected option, though financial position of the council still remains challenging. At present, option 2 is the officer recommended option and is the option that enables the council to better manage the financial position it faces in line with previous decision to not close the homes but to seek an alternative solution. I propose that the Cabinet accepts this recommendation in this report. If it does so, then the next steps will be to move to best and final offers to be sought from the appropriate providers, and then for officers to exercise the delegations in this report in consultation with myself to evaluate these, weighting quality over price, and enter into contracts to transfer the homes as going concerns. In the event of there being no successful outcome of the best and final offer stage of the transfer process, then a further report would be brought back to Cabinet. I move it now.
Thank you, Councillor Addy. Have any members of the public got a question that they wish to put to Councillor Addy at this point?
I'd just like to know if this is a consultation period we've just been in. When we had a meeting with Councillor Addy on week 4, she actually said we are selling to private homes. It's just a case of signing on the dotted line. Yes, you did. We was all in that meeting. I actually recorded that meeting as well. I recorded it.
Because we double-checked, we said, we asked the question again.
So, well,
it's all right, don't let her answer.
One question at a time.
We've got it recorded, let her answer.
I will let you...
I don't remember that phrase, signing on the dotted line, as just the thing there. I did say that we have got...
Sorry, will you let us speak?
We are in this difficult position, and this is the option that makes sense for us. This is the option we have on the table. This is the better option to closure. This is where we're looking to go forward, and what can we do best that will best serve the residents.
Has anyone got another question that they wish to put to Councillor Addy?
Oh, sorry. The one-to-one consultations that Kirklees just keep mentioning that you've had with family members, by definition, they weren't consultations. It wasn't a two-way conversation. It was a tick-boxing exercise. We were asked specific questions. Whether we answered them, that was our prerogative. And then it was just a way for us to communicate our worries and fears, but it was by no means a consultation. It was not a two-way conversation, and we did not get answers to any specific questions. So for Kirklees to say that you've had an in-depth consultation with us is not true.
Before I let Councillor, or ask Councillor Addy, is there anybody else? Mike Foster.
Thank you, Chair. I mentioned earlier about the reputational damage that the Cabinet refers to when talking about this proposal. It goes on to say that officer time will have to be devoted to try and deal with the reputational damage. I would agree with the Cabinet's assessment that this will inflict huge reputational damage on the Cabinet. When did the Labour Party become the party of privatisation?
Are there other...
Yes, so looking at those options, you did just state there that we've got the option of privatisation or closure. And even just then, you didn't point out the fact that there is a third option on the table. The third option on the table has been stated in the report as do nothing, but actually there is a 1B to that, which is retain operation and make them viable. Now, I know that you've said before on numerous occasions that the council isn't able to make the homes viable, and you've pointed out things like the council doesn't have access to certain money-saving activities that the private sector does. But equally, the council has access to money-saving activities that the private sector doesn't have. So I'd like to know if those have been considered, and why is that not on the table as an option? For example, national insurance increases are going to be exempt for the public sector, but the private sector will face an 8.7% increase on that bill, which we won't. And secondly, the council has access to group procurement, collective procurement options through the Crown Commercial Service. So there's a number of factors in there that have not been mentioned and certainly haven't been presented in any set of business case data or analysis to the public.
Any further questions, Sarah? Was that?
I guess more than a question, it's a plea, and it's kind of exploring with all of you the reasons you became elected members and the kind of morals and values that drove you to become elected members, and I'm sure this is not it. Now, I appreciate the financial hardship that Kirklees Council are under, but appreciate our hardship, our sleepless nights, our worry, if I have to return to wishing my mum wasn't with me anymore because I am so terrified about her safety and her well-being, and wishing that she would actually be in a different place to being with us because of what she's been through, I cannot forgive you for doing that to me and my family, because it is the worst thing that I've ever been through in my life, and I live every day just wanting peace. And actually, in a small way, Castle Grange has provided that. I know she is safe, I know she is happy, I know she is content. Is she the mum that I wish she could be? No, she isn't. Does she recognise her grandchildren? No, she doesn't. I've had to cry those tears and grieve that loss. So please do not make me live my everyday wishing my mum not to be here so she doesn't have to suffer anymore, because the effect that will have on me and my family mentally, it's just not bearing to think about. So I am asking you to use your power and your ability to make the right decision here and stand up and be counted, please.
Councillor Addy, would you like to respond to those questions?
Right, I'll try and work my way through those. I think I've got notes of them, but Sarah, I'll start with you. We are looking at providers who provide a level of care that is equitable to what we are providing now. I truly believe you will have that piece with the new provider. I'm not interested in signing off on anything where a provider isn't of quality. The people who have put their bids forward are quality care providers, just like Kirklees. I will mention things such as national insurance. Yes, the council is exempt from national insurance. Is that the case in the case of these, isn't it? But what we are hoping to do through the settlement that we get from government, if it's high enough, is to be able to support other care providers in that realm by pricing fees, but that only happens when the money's there. They are providing quality care in the private sector. They are already doing it, and this is where we want to move our care homes so we can restructure the market and provide care on all fronts via the private sector and Kirklees. You mentioned reputational damage. And when did we become a party of privatisation? When we spent 14 years having no funding, when we were left in a difficult financial situation where we make difficult decisions, but where also we can't sponsor 2 care homes at the cost of other services because we have to look across the care sector, look at how we provide care everywhere. And it's unfortunate that we do have to sell them. Many years ago, councils had lots of care homes, but circumstances were very, very different. And we do not have the capacity to run 2 care homes and extra fund just these residents. We can't do it for all our residents that we have to purport care for. And we refer back to the consultation. This was a time for you to tell us what your families needed so we could make sure we best represented that going forward. For a time for you to say your fears and to have, because I sent responses when I sat down with you, I sent many responses. A chance to speak and a chance to be heard, and specifically to get those special things over that are very important, that could be provided, might not be thought to be provided, that go alongside your care plan, your personal family members' preferences, things that are special to you and important to you that might not be covered in a wider thought. So you had your chance to sit down one-to-one and raise those fears. Hopefully you had a conversation, and I sat down and talked to you and then sent responses.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Addy. Very quickly, yeah.
Just regarding that then, the consultation, yes, it was a chance for us to sit down and express our fears. The integrated impact statement that was produced doesn't bear any resemblance to things that were discussed in the consultations. It doesn't go, really it's quite biased, and it doesn't go into the nitty-gritty of the problems and the worries and the fears of what will happen to the residents if the homes are privatised. So it's not a reflection of the consultation at all.
Councillor Addy, would you just like to quickly respond to that?
Well, I'd like to think we've gathered all your fears, gathered your concerns. Some are very personal and some are very itemised in private documents because they're personal and they're identifiable as yourselves. So they will be separate because we're not going to identify you in a public document. But let me reassure you once more that if Cabinet goes ahead today to the further stage of sale, that we are only looking at quality care homes, care home providers, people who provide quality care in the vein that your families have now.
Thank you, Councillor Addy. Just before I go, I'll ask members to ask their questions that they have on this item. Can I just make one little correction to something that Councillor Addy just said? The council is not exempt from paying national insurance contributions. We have been given additional funding, yes, to cover those costs, but we are not exempt. Nobody is exempt from paying national insurance contributions. So just wanted to put that straight, because people very easily fall into that language that we're exempt or other people should be exempt. That's not the issue.
My apologies, Leader. I went along with the flow of the conversation, but yes, I mean, in effect, we've been managed those because we've been provided with the funding for that.
Okay, so I'll now move on to member questions, and the first one is Councillor Bramwell.
It's one of the most upsetting things to sit here as someone that's a newly elected in my first 6-7 months and watch this cabinet just completely and utterly make mistake after mistake after mistake. It's the most disappointing thing to think that we have people in these portfolios that I don't actually believe know what they're doing. And it's the most upsetting thing to watch women in particular plead for their parents whilst you read notes from officers. These are people that you have sat with for months, and I have to try and put myself in their situation and think about the fact my mum's currently working a 12-hour shift at the hospital where she's been working since 2020. But dementia does run in our family, and it is something that we've lost family members to, and it's something that my mother's tested for, and it's something that she could potentially go into a home for. And I have to put myself in their situation as to what I would do and how would I fight, and I don't think I'd have their resilience. I don't think I'd have their fight. I don't think I'd be able to sit here month after month, week after week, and tell you the same thing that you already know. The consultation that was committed by Kirklees Council was a tick box legality. That's what it was. You've not listened to these residents, because if you had, they would be echoing that today. The only people in this room that's been telling the truth at all are these residents. So my question to you is, how do you sleep at night knowing you've made a negligent decision?
Thank you, Councillor Bramwell. I will take member questions again en bloc and ask Councillor Addy to respond at the end of those. So the next question is from Councillor Munro.
Thank you, Chair. So, in the report, page 14, reasons for recommendation, resident families' response to the consultation do not represent any significant reasons as to why the homes shall not be disposed of. Surely that's a matter for debate and is subjective. Please explain.
Thank you, Councillor Munro. Councillor Cooper.
Are you aware of the response to the government raising employers' national insurance contributions by the Care Providers Alliance? The Care Providers Alliance represents 95% of all social care providers in England, and I'm sure some of those are quality providers. They detail enormous concern, distress and despair across the social care sector. Research by the Nuffield Trust, published on the 22nd of November, puts the impact at 2.8 billion across the independent sector, on top of inflationary and demographic pressures. 95% of providers were concerned at the impact of the budget. 73% of providers will refuse to accept new packages of care from councils. 57% say they will hand contracts back. 92% of the self-funder market will increase fees, adding pressure to already burdened individuals and their families. 64% will let staff go. 86% will be freezing staff pay. 64% will be stepping back from paying the real living wage. 71% will be abandoning business growth. 80% of those providing building-based services will be reducing or stopping capital investment. 22% are planning to close their door on their businesses. 36% are planning to close down some of their services. 39% of those in building-based services like Castle Grange and Claremont House plan to start the process of seeking change of use through planning permission, a Tesco's local, or something like that. One provider described the increase in employers' national insurance contributions as devastating. We have made it through a global pandemic, a cost of living crisis, only to be shut down by the very government we hoped would save us. So my question is this the right time for Kirklees to be handing over dementia care homes to the private sector, even quality providers?
Councillor John Lawson, please.
Thank you. So listening to what's been said today, it seems as though the decision has been made, and that there won't be any last-minute reprieves or changes of heart. What I would say is that in the room there seems to be a sense of an opportunity missed for that most favoured of outcomes, which is co-production of solutions and of ways forward. That seems to have been spectacularly missed here, and co-production seems to have been replaced by consultation, and whatever that means in this council. I think my question to you would be, having lost that sense of we are doing this together, we're not doing this to you, we're not doing this to your relatives, having lost that sense, how do you hope to rebuild trust today, tomorrow, and over the coming months and through this process? How do you hope to rebuild trust with this group of individuals and residents to make sure that they're getting the very, very best for their relatives?
Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go and take it back to what the questions were asked by the members of the public that come. And it is deeply concerning. I think this is a part of this report that you really need to look into. I'm deeply concerned about the findings in the report, particularly about the closures having been slashed from 1.8 million to just 0.8 million. So there are three key flaws that I can see in this report. And it was based on a one-year data, a single snapshot which is no basis for this decision to be made. It fails to explore alternative income sources such as grants and schemes like the Public Sector Decarbonisation Fund, which the Council has a duty to pursue. The cost of private care has drastically been underestimated in this report, but my question is to Cabinet today, and it's really important because your leader says we do consultations, which is absolutely great. Yes, you do. And you listen. You said that, you listened. But if you play it back, you actually say, but we don't have to take that into account. So what you're saying, you're not taking it into account. So what I'm saying to Cabinet today, I know it's an emotive issue and you've got things to do. Is this negligent? That's what you've got to ask yourself. Never mind the officers. You ask yourselves, is this negligent? Have you been clearly misled into making this decision? Are you jeopardising the care of the vulnerable residents and also at risk of wasting public monies? So I'm urging Cabinet today is you haven't got these full facts and you really have to, with a conscience, revisit this by conducting an independent review on the business case, abandon this decision, or even if you're going to suspend it today, you do not have the right information. There is no way possible that you have. Look at other opportunities for the funding and investigate why these errors have happened. That is really important because you've got a massive list, a shopping list of cuts of what you want to do or whatever you want to call them. But what's more particular here is it's about our residents in particular. This is an emotive issue. Dementia is a severe thing that people have, and they deserve better in this. Our colleagues in this chamber have sat, and I've sat in the position where you are now, where we're to make these decisions. But we've got to make it compassionately and be accountable and transparent. There is no business case for this. It's not transparent. No matter what you're being told, it is not transparent, it's not robust, and it was incomplete.
Councillor Safdar.
So last year, when this Cabinet was trying to close the hubs, the Cabinet report stated there was no need for 80 beds of capacity in the wider market. This year now, with the privatisation plans, what's being said is that dementia is on the increase, so private providers won't have any incentive to close the homes. Which is it? Is the capacity needed or not? That's the question.
Thank you, Councillor Safdar. That's the end of member questions. Councillor Addy, would you like to respond to those, please?
I'll just start at the end, Councillor Safdar. There's a growing market, and the interest that we've had that didn't come forward previously shows that there is enthusiasm and need to provide these homes. Otherwise, we would be returning to the position, wouldn't we, where we were looking at closure, and there is need. And working back through my notes, Councillor Scott, if you know of figures that I don't know about, please share them, because I really would like to see them. Because it was under your leadership that it was tabled for closure. Closure, wasn't it? And then it was put...
Leader, I actually kept the home open.
I haven't finished yet. Sit down, I haven't finished. I haven't finished speaking. And then the consultation process meant that we listened as a council and put them onto the agenda for an alternative solution. That solution we have found because we have found interest from the commercial market, from the independent sector, to purchase them. And the decarbonisation grant and other things you refer to are just not applicable. If there'd have been massive funds applicable, they would not have ended up on the list for sale. They would not have ended up on the list for closure. Moving backwards. Councillor Lawson, I would say the same thing. We have listened, and we aren't closing. We're looking at sale. We're pushing forward with some real quality bidders. Hopefully. Can I finish, please? Hopefully, the future will tell that the quality provider will continue looking after everybody else.
Will you please be quiet and let Councillor Addy speak?
We have hundreds and hundreds of people in private care right at this moment. You talk about national insurance. Councillor Cooper brought that up, and you know, yes, it has to be met. Yes, it's a struggle for people in all sorts of businesses to meet higher pay, higher wages, and it's something we really want to be able to encourage and enable. Let's see what the local government settlement brings, and into the future, where we can support the private sector with raised fees to get better pay, and pay the national insurance, to help support care workers and value them as they should be valued. But we can't do that until the money comes. Hopefully it will. Councillor Munro. It says no significant reason. This means it did not highlight anything that the private sector could not provide in the way we provide it. And to go back to the beginning, as I say, I wouldn't say we could run everything as a council, couldn't we, if we had the money? We'd certainly be looking after the most vulnerable in our societies even better than we achieve now. However, where there is need, there is cost, and at the moment there is the ability for the private sector to take these on and us to take on other roles in the social care sector, therefore providing across the need. We listen to the residents and we're not closing them. We are looking for a quality provider, and that is why I'm asking the Cabinet to move option 2 in this report.
Well, very quickly, supplementaries. I didn't allow supplementaries. Well, sorry. Yeah. Councillor, Bramwell.
It's very hard to give a supplementary when I've not had no feedback, but I'll comment. So, basically, you already made a decision before you entered this room that you're taking this in because you have to take it in and it's on the agenda.
This isn't a supplementary.
It can't be in a supplementary, as I've just established, because she didn't feed anything back, can she? So if you're going to feed back to my question and I'll give a supplementary, you're going to ask her to do that.
Sorry, it's not a supplementary. It's a supplementary to what you've heard from here today. I will ask the next person, I think it was Councillor Munro.
Care homes can close at short notice, forcing residents out so they can sell them vacant so they obtain best market value. Apparently, that's the usual practice in the care sector. I therefore believe the families are rightly concerned transferring the homes in the manner proposed may not achieve best value. The council may fail in its fiduciary duty. I therefore request the council retains the care homes and makes them viable. Thank you.
Councillor Cooper.
So I was listening quite carefully to what Councillor Addy said, and she said we could run everything if we had the money. Now, what do we know? We know that when we had the budget, the additional funding was found for social care. And I know that some of that, a large proportion of that, did go to the private sector, but not all of it. Another funding was made available at the same time. Very recently, was it week last Friday, we had another several £1 million worth of funding that we weren't expecting that landed in our budget. And around the 20th of December, we will have the final local government settlement, which we hear Councillor Addy's quite hopeful for, and I'm hopeful as well. And what I said right at the beginning of this process was that if money became available, would this be the thing that we tried to save? Because I remember Councillor Addy saying that she was gutted that we were having to get rid of these care homes. So I take her at her word, and if you're gutted, if you get the opportunity, you'll do something about it and you will make the choice. And being a councillor and sitting in the cabinet seats is about choices. And you have choices that you can make. You can either put the money into reserves, you can do all sorts of things you can do with it, or you can decide what is important to you politically, the things which are politically driven rather than officer driven. Now, if that's the case, and more money does come available, is there any money that will come into this council which would make you save these homes from privatisation?
Sorry? Oh, John Lawson.
Thank you. I think I'd go back to my original question that wasn't really answered, which was that re-establishment of trust. And what practical measures can you think of that would re-establish that trust between the users and the relatives of these facilities and this council? And what kind of council do we want to be?
Do I let her speak? Yeah, but she didn't speak first. Councillor Ali, you didn't ask a question in the first place, so this can't be a supplementary. However, just to for completeness, and this will be the last question I will take, I will allow Councillor Ali to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate your discretion on this account. So it's not a question as such, and it's not a supplementary. I'd like to make a comment, if I may. So, having listened to the case put forward from Cabinet, from fellow councillors and from the relatives of residents. To me, it seems really apparent that there's been a lot of discussion. There's been a lot of discussion around the consultation process, and the members of the Cabinet are saying that during this consultation period they've listened. But what's apparent to me is that they may have listened, but have they really heard? Because the voices of the relatives in this case, I feel, haven't been heard. So looking at the argument and looking at some of the heated responses that we've had from the Cabinet members, which on a subject that's so important, it's people's lives, it's elderly relatives' lives, it could be my mum and dad's lives in the future. It's quite sad to see that heated response. We should show a bit more empathy. And I would urge this Labour Cabinet to not just listen, but to actually hear. And let's look deeper, let's explore further. What are the alternatives? Because there is, and if it needs more time to scrutinise those decisions, let's give it the time that these elderly relatives actually deserve.
Councillor Addy, would you like to respond to those and do a summing up? Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll just come back to Councillor Alley's the end there, because obviously negotiations are ongoing now to take those bids in. The people are looking at what there is there and seeing what we will be looking for the best quality offer on the table. Families wanted continuity of care. They didn't want to move their families, and this will bring that to them. Rebuilding trust will be difficult, because I know you've been very worried. But I truly believe that the people we are looking at who will come and run these homes will rebuild that trust, because they will bring that quality of care that you've got now. And if there's any money, I think Councillor Cooper has brought this to me 3 times now, where there's an infinite amount of money available, I would do lots of things differently, Councillor Cooper, lots and lots of things differently, and I just think that's just pie in the sky. So, if there'd been a potential for us to make them viable previously, they wouldn't have been pitched for closure. We've held on, we've put more money in, so that we can find potential buyers. Those potential buyers are now putting their bids in, or can do when we move to the next stage, if Cabinet agrees. It's not a slip-up, because this is a long process. It's been 2 years. And yes, September 23rd, when I first introduced the issue, I went right through. I wasn't even here then. I wasn't even a councillor. And you know this because you've been along in the process. Yeah, it is a long process. If there had been options along that way, they would have been taken. So now, because we know there are people bidding and wanting to come into this process, we are going to look, well, I'm going to ask the Cabinet to look to move forward to take on board what bids are put in and look for that quality provider who can take them over. So I'd like to move option 2 of the report.
I'm sorry, because I can't see Councillor Scott behind Councillor Hawkins, and I can't see, Councillor Safdar behind Councillor Pinnock. So I believe you were also asking for supplementaries. So I'll ask Councillor Scott and then Councillor Safdar, and then that will be the end. I think we have had everybody's comments from that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. First and foremost, I want to say to Councillor Addy, this is not personal. And I don't want you to go away from here feeling that this isn't a personal attack on you, because it isn't. It's an emotive subject. It's a hard decision I know that you've to make. But what I'm asking again, because I don't think that you actually said it, because I felt myself in some of the questions that were being answered today, it's already predetermined. You predetermined it. And what I'm asking is that I'm urging Cabinet to go back and further look at this, because you cannot make this decision, because on some of this you have been misled. You do not understand the decision really that you are making here today. So my plea to you is, I know it's not going to be a good decision because you've already, for me, predetermined it, but I think you've to live with it. But these people, it's a life sentence.
Councillor Safdar.
I have tremendous sympathy with the families, the campaigners, and I'm going to say something surprising here, actually. I know that Councillor Addy is an incredibly hard-working, caring public servant. And I know I'm going to say something on her behalf. Well, maybe not on her behalf. I suspect that many people in the Labour Cabinet here are against the decision. They are uncomfortable with privatisation. And the problem comes to it, something links to what my friend Andrew has said, is that ideologically where we're at now is that we're seeing increasing privatisation pushed by this strange, almost pro-Brexit Labour Party. So the elephant in the room is that we don't have wealth taxes. We're spending billions of pounds a year on nuclear weapon upgrades, when our own elders and amazing carers here
I'm sorry, Councillor Safdar, you are moving completely off the...
No, it links into funding. I'm sorry, Leader, it links into funding.
Spending billions on...
No, it links... You can lobby the Labour government to divert funds towards our elders that want to save dementia care homes. We must stand against privatisation. Yeah. Such services must be kept within the state sector with serious inspections. Sadly, I don't trust the private sector when it comes to the privatisation. I urge, on behalf of the campaigns, I urge this Cabinet to lobby national government to find the funds to save these care homes and keep them in public service, controlled by this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Safdar. I won't ask Councillor Addy to respond to those questions. I will just say from the chair, just two things. One, in response to what Councillor Cooper said, I mean, yes, we did, well, the interim policy settlement that the government announced a few weeks ago was more generous than we expected it to be, but that doesn't mean that we've got money to put into reserves or into saving any particular service that we have. We have had to use it as it's prescribed. Some of it's for social care, some of it's for education, etc., etc. And unfortunately, it still isn't enough. It's still not enough to meet our needs. We still have a small gap in our budget. We have given you, the next item is, or two items is the budget. That is a budget that balances on paper, but we have not got money that we can slosh around and put into reserves that could be used for any particular service, which of course we would wish to save if we could. And just to answer the question on predetermination, this still isn't determined. Today, the decision in front of us is whether or not we will open up negotiations with care providers who have expressed some sort of interest in taking on these two particular homes. That is what we're doing. The decision is then delegated, according to option 2, to the portfolio holder, Councillor Addy, and to the Executive Director for Social Care, who isn't actually here at the moment. So Richard, isn't it?
It's Richard today.
It's Richard today, but we have got obviously a new Executive Director starting next week. So can I now ask the Cabinet to indicate, sorry, Yeah, so Councillor Addy did move it earlier. Can I ask somebody to, if they're willing to second the motion or the recommendation that of option 2, which is to transfer 2 care homes to a third-party bidder as a going concern, with the proviso of there is a delegated decision to be made later down the road that those preferred bidders are found. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you. Can the Cabinet now vote on that, on those recommendations, on that recommendation, please? Thank you. That is carried. So thank you for everyone for your participation, and we will move on to the next item, item 9, which is options for the future of Cleckheaton Town Hall. Do people just want a 5-minute break whilst I think some people will be leaving the room and some might need top up? We'll take 5 minutes, just 5 minutes. Thank you. Can we start the meeting then, please? Thank you. Right, okay. So item 9 is the options for the future of Cleckheaton Town Hall. Again, we've got some private papers which are commercially sensitive here. So can I just check with members of the Cabinet they have read those, and we don't need to go into private session to discuss those at all. Right, thank you. So before we have members of the public, I will invite Councillor Turner to present the report.
Chair, thank you. This is the long-awaited report into the future of Cleckheaton Town Hall. The Town Hall was effectively mothballed in spring 2023 following a plaster fall in July 2022. Following this, a full and detailed report was commissioned by the Council. The final report, which was compiled following that full and robust investigation, the current state of the Town Hall, found a substantial requirement for capital investment over the next few years. Money which, quite simply, the Council does not have at this moment in time. Considering this, 5 options have been developed, which are found on page 42, 43, 44 and 45 of today's agenda. Cabinet have discussed the options and the future of the Town Hall many times and at great length in developing these options. So they know the details, but if the Chair forgives me, I will go through them to ensure that any members of the public who may be watching or have not had the time to read and digest the report fully understand the situation and the recommendations I will be making at the end of the speech. Option 1 is to keep the building mothballed at a cost of £131,000 per year until Cabinet makes a decision on its future. Option 2, somehow find the £1.5 million to carry out the immediate repairs at a cost of £180,000 for 25 years to pay back that, and a subsidy of £250,000 a year in revenue costs, leaving it closed for up to a minimum period of 2 years. This would mean that at some point in the future, about £6 million would have to be found and another closure would be needed. Option 3, find the full £7 million and do all the work with the closure of about 2.5 years. This would cost the Council £516,000 over 25 years and again a substantial subsidy to cover the running costs. Option 4, permanent closure, which could lead to the sale by private treaty or auction, or it would become an asset of community value, or is offered as a community asset transfer. This would take in the region of 12 to 18 months and would cost £131,000 per year until the building is disposed of. If sold by either auction or private treaty, then a capital receipt would be expected. Quite what that would be is difficult to predict at this moment in time because we don't know where the market for such buildings will be in future years. So we want no point second guessing what it may or may not be worth. We have an idea what its use may be, but that's an option. Option 5, to engage with the community and look for them to submit a new EOI of taking over the management and running of the hall. Any group expressing interest will be free to look for grants and investment that the Council is unable to apply for. They would also be free to use the space for commercial use to generate income to help find the running costs. If external funding was found, then the Council would consider any match funding. However, I cannot guarantee that we will have the capital available, but we would, as far as possible, look favourably on any such application. That is made very clear in today's report. It's there in black and white for the people to see. The Town Hall is no doubt a well-loved building, given the amount of emails I've had over the last 2 days, and was well used by a large section of the community prior to its closure on health and safety grounds. If that community comes together and works in a collaborative way, then there is a good chance the building will have a new lease of life and go on to have a bright future. Whilst there are examples across Kirklees of similar undertakings, I know they are not on the scale of this building, so I cannot pretend that it will be easy and not without its challenges. We will support any group who look to create a plan. They would have access to locality and organisation we use to help groups in these situations, who have a vast amount of expertise and have worked very successfully with many groups across Kirklees in the past. Whilst we have put some indicative timescales in today's report, these are only a guideline, and if progress had been made by a group, and needed more time, as in other examples across Kirklees, we will be able to flex that date, as it would be foolish to stick slavishly to a timescale when it may cause a positive outcome to fail. If by working together as a community, a strong workable case was presented to Cabinet, we would then be able to provide a further Cabinet report for approval of any proposals that secures the function of the Town Hall in future years. We've already heard that, sadly, part of our job at the moment, and has been for the last few years, is to make really difficult and challenging decisions that none of us really want to take. None of these options are easy for me and the Cabinet, but the harsh reality is that the country as a whole, and local government especially, is financially challenged now. The lack of money means that we must make tough decisions, and like a broken record, I've said it time and time again, and I'll say it again, there is absolutely no pleasure in making these decisions, and it's not what I went into public service for, which somebody asked earlier on. I genuinely hate having to propose cuts to services and to buildings, etc. But quite simply, we cannot spend money we haven't got. We have to produce a balanced budget by law. So I would seek Cabinet's approval to accept option 5 in today's report. If Cabinet does accept option 5 as the way forward, officers and myself will work with the councillors and the MP alongside the community to formulate a successful community group that can develop a business case that can be presented to Cabinet, and a plan that enables them to cover the revenue costs and the future maintenance costs as laid out in point 6.3 in today's report. I know there is a strong community spirit. As I say, I've had dozens of emails, etc. I would encourage the good people of the Spen Valley to come forward and help secure the future of the Town Hall. Any offer of support in either a voluntary capacity or indeed some other offers of support in any form whatsoever will of course be welcomed. I genuinely hope the community will come together and produce a long-term plan that can secure the future of the Town Hall. As also stated in the report, we would look very favourably to any request for capital funding if there was any capacity in the capital budget, if there was a robust plan in place. I need to reiterate that. We're not walking away fully. We would look favourably on any such request. However, that is not a promise or commitment to any capital expenditure. It's simply reiterating what is in today's report. We will continue to mothball the Town Hall to cost £131,000 to the Council for the foreseeable future. Cabinet Chair, can I ask you to approve option 5 today?
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Can I now ask members of the public to put questions to you? I will start with Christian Burke, who I understand is speaking on behalf of the MP Kim Ledbetter. Thank you, Christian.
Oh, hello. Yeah, so I'm Christian Burke. I'm here on behalf of Kim Ledbetter. I've got a statement to read from Kim. Okay, I'll just get started. I have to believe that no one in the room wants to close to Cleckheaton Town Hall, so I hope we can use this today as an opportunity to find a solution to reopen it and get it back up and running, serving the people of Cleckheaton, Spen Valley and beyond. I understand that the council can't do that on its own, as is highlighted many times in the report, but neither can the community, including existing groups that are simply not set up to provide a business case plan. So I believe we should embrace this opportunity to demonstrate what true community partnership work and co-production look like. This does, of course, require a significant amount of commitment from everyone involved. For my part, whilst I have no jurisdiction over the Town Hall, I am more than happy to facilitate discussions and conversations between all interested parties and do everything we can to reach a solution. I know this won't be easy, but I think as public servants we have a duty to try. I've lived in Spen Valley all my life and know how much the Town Hall means to people, and not just in Cleckheaton. So as part of the plan, I would suggest we have a discussion about perhaps renaming the building to something like the Spen Valley Town Hall, as it serves people in all the towns around Cleckheaton. In the coming months, we should work with local community groups, businesses and residents to put together a robust and sustainable business plan. There are excellent examples of where this has been done elsewhere, and whilst I fully acknowledge that this would be a very large project, I think we can learn from other experiences and also potentially unlock funding going forwards. So, as per my recent correspondence, I would ask the Cabinet to consider exploring a hybrid model of options 2 and 5, and I offer to facilitate a meeting in the new year where we can discuss what this could look like and how we can move forwards. Finally, if the Cabinet decides to choose option 5, which is recommended in the report, and which means to hand over the running costs to a community group, then I hope the Council will amend the suggestion to represent a more realistic timeline. I appreciate what Councillor Turner said about it being flexible, but we need guarantees in order to not make what is already a very difficult process even more difficult by not letting people know that there is this opportunity. The current timeline, for example, only gives 1 month from the start of advertisement of this opportunity for an expression of interest. That is simply not enough time. We know it's a complex situation because the report highlights how complicated a business plan would be for a community group to come up with. If I can take your attention to option 2.12, finding a community group would be a sizable and challenging undertaking. Clearly, the report has taken account of this. 2.14 hopes that there is the potential for a community group to take on the management of Cleckheaton Town Hall. But, as Councillor Turner has already highlighted, if a successful business case is proposed, the Council would wish to understand, the Council makes no guarantees that this capital funding would be made available, again, making very difficult an already very difficult process. We also have things to take on board, such as 2.21, where the report states that the Council would wish to understand how this might impact, that is, the opening of Cleckheaton Town Hall, on the viability of council and third-party facilities and venues elsewhere, and what potential mitigation measures could be introduced. Whilst I understand that an expression of interest does not necessarily need to come up with all these solutions right away, you would hope that any community group planning to take this on would be given time to come up with potential solutions that is more than a month. So, many thanks for your hard work, time and consideration of this really important issue. Kim.
Thank you, Christian. I will take, again, the questions en bloc, if I may, Councillor Turner. The next one is Francesca Whittlestone. Francesca?
Hello, thank you very much for agreeing to let me speak. My name is Francesca Whittlestone and I'm Secretary for Cleckheaton and Spenborough Town Hall Group. The group came together through a common desire to see the Town Hall reopened. Our chair, Chris Moore, is the Deputy Chair for Cleckheaton University of the Third Age, one of the many groups who have been banished from the Town Hall and are now based in Gummersall Public Hall, as a result of which membership has declined by half. The recommendation in the report in front of you is based on regarding Cleckheaton Town Hall as a corporate liability. But this building is not just office accommodation that has been vacated by the council, it is a community focal point. An impression has been given that there has been consultation with the community about the plans for Cleckheaton Town Hall, and as a result, option 5 is being recommended for approval. Discussions have taken place between ward members, RNP and the council, but as we understand it, it's been primarily about keeping them up to date on events. This group has asked for and has been promised the opportunity to be involved in discussions about the future of the Town Hall, but no approach from the council or direct discussions have taken place. Cabinet do not need to accept any of the options in the report before you. You can put forward your own proposals. It is not realistic to expect Cleckheaton Town Hall to retain its role as a community building without financial and organisational assistance from Kirklees. Therefore, a 6th option should be considered in which Kirklees Council invest in the Town Hall sufficient to allow it to reopen and then take the lead in partnership with private business and local communities, not just in Cleckheaton but throughout the Spen Valley. A collaboration to seek funding for the repair and restoration work and future management of the building. The formulation of a proper plan needs to take place to secure the future of the Town Hall to the high quality befitting this magnificent building so it can re-establish its position as a pivotal community building in the Spen Valley. This would be a fitting outcome for one of Kirklees' magnificent buildings, which in their own heritage strategy is described as being something that we should be extremely proud of.
Thank you, Francesca. Erica Amandi is the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Erica Amandi. I am the Secretary of Spen Valley Civic Society, and I'm speaking on their behalf. The Civic Society recognises the financial difficulties that our council faces due to the serious reduction in funding from our national government. It's a bitter irony that you are discussing this matter today in the same week as you have received money from the sale of the Red House in Spen Valley. Spen Town Hall in Cleckheaton is a vital public resource. It was built because of the introduction of the Spen Valley Parliamentary Division of the West Riding. It is now the only public building in the Spen Valley constituency, one of Kirklees Council's constituencies. It's the only building capable of hosting concerts, drama, and music events. So besides being a municipal resource, it's an extremely important cultural resource. There's been a complete lack of consultation regarding this matter. I appreciate Councillor Graham Turner has attended the only public meeting about this building, and that was convened by the MP who requested his attendance in October 2023. For the public of Spen Valley who are served by this building, and that includes the wards of Birstall and Birkenshaw, Liversidge and Gummersall, and Heckmondwike, as well as Cleckheaton. For the public, the first they knew about this was in the publication of the reports for this meeting last week. And I anticipate that you will read quite a lot of comment by the public in local press and on local social media when the outcome of today's meeting is public. Option 5, as proposed, is highly unrealistic for a building of the size and grandeur of the town hall in Spen Valley. I accept that other buildings in Kirklees have been taken over by community groups, but they are much smaller and the money values involved are considerably less. And therefore, any body taking on such responsibility would have to have considerable professional and legal expertise, which is not likely to happen in small voluntary community groups. The Civic Society agrees with the MP proposals as outlined that we would wish to see a hybrid option comprising options 2 and 5 in your report, so that a more realistic way forward can be found with the local community groups. And we'd also like to ask, on behalf of the Civic Society, about the new £1.4 billion investment programme across Kirklees, and why it is only mentioned that it will be spent in Dewsbury and Huddersfield. Thank you.
I haven't been notified of any other public member that wanted to speak, but is nobody else wants to say anything? That's okay. I mean, you don't have to. Councillor Turner, would you like to respond to those?
Yep. Thank you, Chair. I'll respond to Christian first, and on behalf of Kim, who spoke on behalf of Kim. A couple of points is I've been in regular dialogue with Kim. We've swapped emails, WhatsApp messages over the last couple of weeks, so I know her views, and she knows mine. So we have been in constant dialogue. As regards the renaming of Spen Valley, I think that's a great idea. I'm more than happy to do that. I wouldn't have any objection to that. We can only vote on what we have in front of us. We have 5 options today, so we can't have a 6 or a 7 or a 5B. So we have to vote with what's in front of us today. So it's one of those 5 options. She mentioned the timeline, but as I said earlier, the timeline is flexible. We wouldn't, if somebody came forward with a plan and said they needed more time, we would absolutely work with them to try and get that over the line in a reasonable time. It has to be flexible because I understand the challenges around that. So we have to put something in the report, but it is flexible. As we've done, as I said earlier, we've done before with other organisations that just need a bit more time or a bit more help. We're more than happy to do that. 2.1 is in there because it would be remiss of us in any detailed report not to recognise that if we manage to secure funding, or a group managed to secure funding, or we could bring, for whatever reason, bring the town hall back into use in a couple of years' time, that that may have an impact on other organisations. That would be remiss. It wouldn't be a very detailed report. And in actual fact, if anybody investing the level of money that it needs to offset the revenue costs, you would want it to be used extensively more than it is or has been in the past to get those revenue costs under control. Therefore, they could well attract artists, events, etc., groups from other organisations. So it's simple. Absolutely, we have to put that in there to recognise that fact. Otherwise, it wouldn't be detailed enough report. So we have to recognise that fact. U3A, declining membership, well, if we were to come, as I say, who knows if we got back in a couple of years whether you could do that. But again, now you're using the other function facility. If you were to move out, does that put them under pressure? Nobody's yes, engaged. Nobody's been in touch with me directly to ask me to come and speak to you, or swap emails directly, or WhatsApp, whatever. If you invite me to a meeting, I'm more than happy to come. I don't think I've ever turned down an invitation to a public meeting ever in my life as a councillor. If I'm available, I will always go and attend. I did attend the one in 2023 with Kim after discussions with her, and I went along and supported her in that conversation. You're absolutely right. And again, I was invited, so I went. Red House, you're absolutely right. We sold Red House last week. We got public knowledge. We got 650,000 for it. But when you're preparing last year's budget, well, this year's budget that we're now in, what we do, we build into that set of assumptions around disposals and the capital receipt. So in effect, that money is in this year's budget, and we use that to offset some of our capital expenditure. So it's in there already, so it's accounted for in effect. And that's how we next year's budget will have some assumptions, which we're talking about later, about what we might dispose of next year and how that feeds back into the budget process. I don't recognise where you get 1.4 billion from. I think that's a rounding up of various pots of money. A lot of those not in our control. Money comes from various government pots, and it's ring-fenced, and we can only spend it on very specific projects. We work with English Heritage, we work with Homes England, so we do get lots of money, but it's for very specific projects, and it cannot be moved around. It's like the levelling up for money from the previous government, the government reiterated only in the budget, that is for specific projects, and not to spend it on those projects doesn't mean we can spend it through elsewhere. It has to be spent on very specific projects. So I don't recognise that we have a spare 1.4 billion. I genuinely wish we had. In fact, I settled for 0.4 of a billion, but unfortunately we don't. And I hope that's answered all your questions.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I can just respond a little bit on the 1.4 billion. It is actually, we have got a capital plan of 1.4 billion over the next 5 years, but as Councillor Turner has said, it's all, most of it, well, if not all of it, is already allocated via different government funds or West Yorkshire Combined Authority funds, or some of it's even from Network Rail funds. So it isn't all there to spend on whatever we like. It isn't also only to be spent in Dewsbury and Huddersfield. There is, amongst that 1.4 billion, there is the small towns capital schemes that in there for all of the, from Holmfirth to Batley, and it includes Cleckheaton. And Cleckheaton has got £1.5 million worth of money, which has already been identified and is in the process of being spent on Savoy Square and the market, Spend Bottoms and the Greenway connection. So I think it's 1.27 million of that 1.5 has already been identified, so there's a small amount left out of that particular capital pot fund. But that's just to add a little bit more to what Councillor Turner already responded to there. I will just ask you briefly, the three of you that have already spoken, if you have a supplementary.
The question about the 1.4 billion as applying to, it's referred to applying to the sort of small towns and infrastructure, local towns and economic infrastructure. So that's, am I right in thinking then that that money is already being identified as allocated? It's not.
Yes, it is already allocated in consultation with the ward councillors and MP, I understand. Sorry, Councillor Turner.
And the money that's allocated for Cleckheaton Town Centre, I got the latest figures today. It was that we had 1.5 million allocated. So far to date, we spent 225,000 on master planning and engagement activities, etc. 100,000 is allocated to deliver the Spend Bottoms master plan. 100k is allocated to the Savoy Square, and the further 750 is allocated to deliver the scheme. 325 was earmarked to the council's contribution to the CR STS Greenway Link scheme. That means that that's where the money's been already allocated, and that was following, as we said, a lot of consultation with residents and ward members. In fact, we had one scrutiny meeting, I believe, from memory, across in the town hall, and we went to look around all the various sites, and it rained significantly, and I remember it took me 2 days to dry myself out. My coat was dripping because I hadn't got an umbrella. So we have spent a lot of time working on Cleckheaton things, and we have these projects in mind, and we're hopefully not going out to contract for those as soon as we possibly can.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I will now ask members to put their questions. The first one is Councillor Kath Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. I think, first of all, I'm going to say I think it's a very, very disappointing report. And then I'm going to address this 1.5 million of capital. Because the 1.5 million of capital spend for Cleckheaton was based on the report that was drawn up at the council's insistence by Arabs. And we walked round Cleckheaton with the representative Arabs to discuss the future of our wonderful town. And he highlighted two enormous benefits that our town has. One was free parking, and the other one was the town hall. And emphasised in his report how important the town hall is to the life of the area, not just as a town hall, but as a source of cultural activities, community get-togethers, of bringing extra income into the town. So if we had known at that stage of determining how to spend that 1.5 million, that the town hall was under threat, we would have said unanimously, the three of us, that 1.5 million should be spent on opening up the town hall, doing the health and safety work necessary so that the community have time to think about and plan about its future. So that offer is on the table. None of those projects that have been referenced by Councillor Turner have actually been spent. They're just allocations. And we would very pleased to reallocate it to the 1.5 million that's needed for health and safety. Now, I know Councillor Turner will then go, but there's revenue costs. Well, so there is, but there's revenue costs in the borrowing that the council is doing towards its very, very, very significant spending on Huddersfield town. Now, I don't regret that spending, but what I do regret that it's at the expense of other towns in the Kirklees. So that's the first point I want to make, is that the capital money is certainly there. Then there's the issues of principles that's in the report. It talks about that the town hall is no longer a core asset. Well, what then is a core asset to this council? Is it just about service delivery? And if you don't have service delivery, the building's not a core asset. Is it? Is that what we think about local government now? That if you can't have service delivery from a place, that it's of no account anymore, that the community is of no value, that cultural experiences are of no value. Is that what we're saying? Are we reckoning into the cost, the loss of that building for community use? So that's a question I really would like to ask and hope for an answer. Now, the next principle I think that's missing from this whole report is one that was referenced by the questions earlier, is there's been no working with communities, or indeed with us as ward representatives. We've had meetings where we've been told what is going to happen, but that is not a discussion or a consultation. And certainly no one in the town has had any opportunity to have their say. None, as you heard. Not even those who formed the group specifically to support the future of our town hall. I mean, I just think that's a total failure of governance. Then there's this, the way that there's always, from experience, there's always choices. However tight the funding, there are always choices. Now, the Cabinet seems to have made a choice that all service delivery has to be from Huddersfield, and that no other towns are going to have any service delivery in a physical sense. And therefore, they have decided to pour very considerable sums of money, which is direct borrowing, by the way, of 250 million into what's known as the cultural heart in Huddersfield. Now, what that means is that the rest of us who actually do continue to pay our taxes to support this are being denuded of the facilities that we have currently in order to fund this very extensive capital plan in Huddersfield. So now you might argue that, well, that's okay, everybody in Kirklees can come to Huddersfield. Well, I'll tell you now, if you live in Cleckheaton, you don't go to Huddersfield. Why would you? Why would you? When you can easily get to Leeds. It's quicker and easier to get to Leeds on public transport than it is to Huddersfield. You could almost get to Manchester in the time it takes to get to Huddersfield. So there is a beginning to be a complete cut aside between the communities in this borough, between those who have and those who are not going to have anything. Then I suppose that brings me to the options, really. because the others are going to say lots of other stuff. You said option 5 has been described as being totally unrealistic, and so it is. And what I want to know from Councillor Turner, because the Cabinet seem intent on agreeing with option 5, is how flexible is flexible. You know, if it's a month that's in the report to get a group together, which is totally unrealistic, is it going to be 6 months to get a group together? That would be more realistic. And then would we have 6 months to get a business case together, given the complexity of that building and size of it? Now, you know, the MP and I had a meeting in London last week to discuss this, because we're both very concerned about what's happening. And, you know, we don't entirely agree, but what we did say is option 5 is unrealistic, flexible or no flexibility, but option 2 would be. We could live with it, because you can invest that capital, get the health and safety stuff done, get back into the town hall, get people using it again, so that we can actually have somewhere to meet, to have all these discussions, actually. That's always a help if you've got a place to meet. And that was one where we both agreed would be a sensible and way forward for us, for both the town and for the Cabinet, so they're not imposing stuff on us. And finally, you know, there are always choices, and the Cabinet are choosing to denude other parts of Kirklees of their facilities. That is not a route I would advise, because people are getting angry in our part of Kirklees about what is happening. And the second thing I want to say is I want the Cabinet to come and visit Cleckheaton Town Hall. We can open it up. It's not dangerous. It's not a dangerous building. We can open it up and you can see what you are proposing. I'll take you down to the basement and up into the clock tower. I've been to both. You can see how extensive it is. But come, and I really want you to answer that question. Will you come to Cleckheaton, to the town hall, and see for yourself what you're deciding? And the most important thing to say is, make the right choice, not just for now, but for the future. You can manage it for now. It's the future that counts, and Cleckheaton is the heart of the Spen Valley.
Thank you, Kath. I will ask Councillor Andrew Pinnock to speak next. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Well, follow that. I'm not sure that what I will have to say will be quite as extensive, but what I was intending to talk about was the heritage and building aspects of this, because we have a town hall which, like the other town halls in Kirklees, is a listed building, and but Cleckheaton's different because it's closed, whereas the others are at the moment working. And indeed, our town hall has been closed either partially or completely for 2 years. And over that period of time, quite an effect has been felt in the town, because we now have no large public building that can be used for meetings, no benefit from what happens in the town hall can be felt in the town centre, and what's more, The other interesting thing is that in the technical report, which I hadn't realised was actually within your within the documentation that you've got, the point that keeps coming over when you read through that is lack of cyclical maintenance. Lack of maintenance. Things haven't been done over the last 20 years or so. I suppose, to be perfectly honest, the only thing one can be grateful for is that there isn't really anything wrong with the roof. And we all know that large buildings with roof problems can often be the death knell for them. But fortunately, quite a lot of work was done 20 years or so ago. So that's good. What I, in a way, don't particularly understand about all this is that on 3 or 4 occasions, repairs were done to the other town halls, and yet somehow or other, when we got round to Cleckheaton, the money had run out, and that's not very good. You might say the council is in charge of a listed building that it's not maintaining very well. The important thing about this town hall, which I don't really think people who live outside the Spen Valley fully appreciate, is that this is the only large public building in the whole of the new Spen Valley constituency. And what does that mean? It means that it's got a concert hall, and it's got a theatre with a proscenium arch, which means that performances can be put on. And again, it's the only one of those in the whole of North Kirklees. So those are 2 good reasons for wanting the building to be brought back into use. Yes, finally, I think I will sum up what we would like to see happen. Our first preference, quite clearly, would be option 3, because we think the Spen Valley and the rest of North Kirklees, and the rest of Kirklees for that matter, deserves to have the 4th town hall in full working order. And but if not, then what we've heard from the discussions that my colleague Kath Pinnock has had with Kim Leadbeater, option 2, get the health and safety issues sorted out. Then, as has been said, we've got a town hall in which we can have some meetings, and then have enough time to sort out what the future is. I'm not personally not totally convinced about the community running a building of this size, because I think it's too big, frankly. And it would be more like a business undertaking than something done by a community group. All right, if there are people around who've got that sort of expertise to offer for that, but we are, to a degree, being set up to fail with this option, because there is the big danger that nobody will come forward who wants to do this. I'm not trying to be totally negative, but there is the danger that, having chosen that option, you end up having to start all over again. And that's not a good look. So I urge the Cabinet to rethink what they're being asked to do.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. It's now Councillor Smage's question. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was sure it was Councillor Lawson, but I'll go next. That's okay with him. So as already been mentioned, that in my ward, Burstall and Birkenshaw, part of my ward used to be in Spenborough, just part of it, the Birkenshaw and East Biley part. And we've also heard about choices, and your budget report later on in the agenda also talks about choices. So can we be clear, please, that it is Cabinet's choice for Cleckheaton or Spenborough Town Hall not to be part of the core estate? And it is Cabinet's choice not to have carried out maintenance works to enable the reopening so that the Town Hall can bring in an income stream to the council. Your 2022 report on town halls, of which Cleckheaton was amongst them, said about protecting the historic fabric of flagship heritage buildings and about additional investment in equipment, facilities and decoration, alongside essential investment in repairs and conditions, delivering for both communities and customers. Today's report really seems to be a U-turn as far as Cleckheaton is concerned on that position. The ideal, of course, would be for the council to pay for the full repairs and to reopen it and to run the town hall as it should be run. There does seem to be an imbalance of affordability across Kirklees, yet again. From a practical point of view, I am part of a group that did undertake an asset transfer from the council on a much smaller building than a town hall, and therefore I have practical experience of the timescales involved. And the timescales that have been proposed in your favoured option just aren't practical. The time it takes to put together a business case in itself and to get the information from the council, the timescales alone in that does not fit with the timescales that you are asking for. We were able to take on a building that was already open, so we were able to see whether there was an income stream in order to support that building, whether we could build that income stream, which we were able to do. But whatever group, if a group takes this on, they need to know what the full costs are and what the possible income streams will be. And the more practical way of doing that is having a building that is open, that you can see whether income is coming in and what the actual costs are, because it takes a long time to disentangle costs in a council building. So what I'm saying is 3 months is a very short space of time, and it's almost as if, and it has been said, it's almost as if this is setting up for failure because of those short-term timescales. So I would ask that Cabinet ensure that repairs are carried out so the town hall can at least be opened, and that sufficient time is given to ensure that there is a positive future for the Spenborough Town Hall. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Smage. And now it is the turn of John Lawson. Thank you.
Thank you. Whilst Cleckheaton, the residents in Cleckheaton and in Spen Valley are a welcoming bunch, we are not a tourist town. It's a shopping town. It's a shopping town full of services. That's what makes it a destination. That shopping town has been blessed, let's use that word, with the footfall that Cleckheaton Town Hall, that the Spen Town Hall provides to its area. So not only is it a regeneration proposal to keep Cleckheaton Town Hall, Spenborough Town Hall going, it's also a social imperative that Cleckheaton Town Hall keeps going. It's greater than the sum of its parts. It's not just what you see on the budget line is what it provides, what is the value of what it provides. It has several groups there. We've had the U3A mentioned, Spen Amateurs, the British Legion were there, Folk Festival was there, and others, numerous dance troupes and all the performances and gigs we see there in the stage. In that social value that's provided in the town hall, we have, for example, in the U3A, we have people who look after one another. We say, oh, Mavis isn't here today. Let's look out for her. What's she doing? I don't know. I'll call on my way home. You've got all of that outreach work that's going, that informal, voluntary work that's going on. And that has been lost, quite frankly. We've heard that the U3A has been halved. I absolutely believe that it's absolutely been decimated. And all of that value is at risk when we talk about not reinstating the town hall. The economic value, the regeneration value, I think that over the next few years, what we'd have to start doing is we'd have to start investing heavily in Cleckheaton and the surrounding towns to try and replace the value that has been lost over the last couple of years and that will continue to be lost over the next few years. We've talked about the 1.5 million in the Towns and Villages programme. What I'd say is that if you went on to spend the money that's allocated in that programme in Cleckheaton, you'd get left out of town if the town hall is not actually being saved and preserved into the bundle. So you can't have one without the other, I'm afraid. As far as options go, I'm afraid option 5 does set the communities up to fail. What you'll find is community groups, it does take a long time to get going. Community groups are usually reliant on 2, maybe 3 key people, and they, like everybody else, have lives. And things happen in people's lives and people drop out in those lives. So it needs to be done on more of a business footing rather than a voluntary group footing or community group footing. And don't forget that those community groups are much more vulnerable to changes in market forces. So things like if you're asking them to do power or keep up to health and safety regimes and things like that, they're much more vulnerable to that. They're much more on the knife edge economically to be able to keep up with things. As far as the options that we'd prefer, I think I quite liked Francesca's option of 2 plus or option 6. I'm quite happy with that. Option 5, yes, we should be talking to the communities. We should be having those community voices on board. It's a really good point, actually, about creating extra capacity to apply for funding through those groups. We've used that elsewhere in Cleckheaton, for sure, especially at Scholes Rec and places like that. But it can't be relied on as the only aspect. So have those conversations by all means, but option 2 out of these would be our fallback position after Councillor Andrew Pinnock's option 3 favourite.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Now I've got, I know, Paul, you're flashing. I've actually got Councillor Scott next. Or no? Okay. Councillor Paul Moore.
Thank you, Chair. This report plans to transfer the financial liability of a major asset which has been mothballed for a number of years to a community management arrangement of some kind, I'm not sure which. The significant ongoing revenue costs and huge capital refurbishment costs to make this project a success offer a huge challenge to any established group, let alone a newly created group. In addition, I'd like to echo what a couple of people have said about the timescales being unrealistic. I've been involved in 2 successful asset transfers. I know it's not the same, but it's very similar, and 1 that was unsuccessful. The 2 that were successful took between 12 and 18 months. And the 1 that was unsuccessful was because it required between 1.5 and £2 million revenue, capital Yeah, a third of what this is. And we had support from locality and loads of other groups. But, you know, I just think that the timescales you've put in here are completely unrealistic. And I'm sure Councillor Turner, having been involved in so many different asset transfers, must realise that those timescales are not realistic. So my first question is to Cabinet is, what consultation and outline conversations with wider community groups and elected members from Cleckheaton have taken place prior to this being brought forward, this report being brought forward to Cabinet?
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Viv Kendrick.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to join in with some comments, and I'm really interested. I mean, I note that the current cost of having it mothballed is £131,000 that's going out year on year. And I'm really interested in Councillor Kath Pinnock's response, and I think John Lawson has answered it, about the money that's allocated for the towns and villages money. I just want to check that Councillor Andrew Pinnock also agrees with his wife. I assume he does. And were it possible, and I don't know, and I bet Graham doesn't know at this point if that could be changed, I would like to see us look at that as a possibility. And I note that the work to the immediate work, which is the ceiling, that's the problem, is likely to take 18 to 24 months' time, according to the report, which would give a group some time to form and look at what they could do. I don't know if that's a possibility. And yes, the town hall is much emptied compared to how it was before, and that's because services have reformed and work differently, like the services now that are gone and work out of the library, like adult social care and children's social care, work in a different way and aren't sat in places like town halls. And that's an issue, and that gap, that vacancy would need to be addressed. And as for a visit to the town hall, I'm very happy to go. If I'm not available, don't wait for me, as somebody who worked in the town hall, attended meetings in the town hall and performed in the town hall. I think I know it quite well. You missed it, Kath, you missed it. I would like, and I don't know, I can't preempt Councillor Turner's response, but I would like us to look at whether there is some way forward on making that health and safety part right, with using other monies. I know we haven't got spare money to find it as such, and we can't invent other options on this list. The report is the report, and that's really my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick. Councillor Turner, would you like to respond?
I'll try. There's a lot there, isn't there? I'm just going to go through the way I've sort of written some of these down. So, visit, as I said earlier, if you want me to come and have a look at it, I'll come and have a look at it. I've been in there many times. I don't mind coming and having another look around, but the Cabinet want to come with the... We've got Councillor Kendrick who'll come, so that's two of us. Who's obviously...
Chief Exec Signalling.
Chief Exec's going to come as well. So, so I think we need a taxi or a minibus. So we will come. We will have a good look round, absolutely, and thank you for the invitation. So I have been there many times, but we'll go back and have another look, so that's fine. Yeah. Lack of maintenance for the last 20 years. I've had this conversation with Andrew before, and we all, I think, would accept that most of our public buildings, if not all of them, don't quite get the level of maintenance that we would do if we owned it ourselves, because we have a finite budget, and we have lots of buildings. We have huge amounts of buildings, some very complicated buildings, some very architecturally interesting buildings, lots of listed buildings. And at every budget time, we have to devise a budget, as we will go on to later. And it's always a challenge, isn't it? Do you spend a significant amount of money on painting some windows that year, or doing some work on a building, and not fund adult social care or children's services adequately? Those are all difficult choices. And he talked about the last 20 years. Well, I haven't been here for 20 years, but what I do know is you cannot single this administration and this cabinet out, because over the last 20 years, every single party has had a go at running this council. So we're all remiss at not investing enough in our public buildings, and that can't be got away from, because, as I say, it's difficult. There's never enough money to do everything, and sometimes you have to make difficult choices. And as I say, some buildings do and have been neglected over the years. So there's nothing I can do about that, unfortunately. Timescales, I'll reiterate, if somebody comes forward and looks like they're developing a plan or will ask for some time, we will give them, as long as they want, within reason. If they take a year, 18 months, John's going to kill me now. We'll find the money somehow to do that. But if they must be progressing. I don't want to get into a situation where we have been in past, where people said they're doing things and then they're not, and they drag it out and they drag it out. If there's real positive movement and there's a real deal to be done, or they're really looking like they're going to achieve something, we will extend that timeline until that either happens or doesn't happen for whatever reason. So that timescale is in the report, but it is flexible. We will work to make sure that if somebody comes with a good plan, we wouldn't throw that out just because they have the timescales not being met. Investment across Kirklees, and it's a challenge, isn't it? It's a large area. We are all very parochial about the bit we live in, or the bit we want, or the bit where we used to live, or Blad, or where we go for as entertainment, etc. So we all want the investment wherever we have a vested interest, shall we say. We have invested in Spen. We did build a brand new sports centre not that long ago at a significant cost. We recognise the old one was falling down. I mean, again, somewhere I went many times, and it was a bit horrifying if you went down into the bowels. I know certain people that went with, they refused to go down. It was so challenging to go down there. So we recognise that fact, and we invested that money in sports. So we invest where there's a need, where there's a project, when we invest across Kirklees. Yes, we're doing significant investment in Huddersfield Town Centre, but that's a 7-acre site at the heart of, and unfortunately for some people, it is the economic heart and the administrative heart of Kirklees, and we have to reinvent our town centres. An interesting fact I picked up from the manager of one of our local shopping centres a couple of weeks ago. 38% of all retail is now done online. So if 38% is all done online, that means our retail capacity really needs to be reduced by 38%. It's not exactly an exact science, but it's got to be reduced significantly to reflect those changes. And we don't want to fall in the trap of some other countries where when towns and small cities start to decay because of the change in people's shopping habits, they didn't invest and they left them, and the people with money or the people with businesses moved a bit further away and created what I call the donut theory. So you had a hollowed out centre which really didn't benefit anybody and created a whole set of new problems. So it's right to invest in our town centres across Kirklees, and that we alluded to the 1.5 million that we've committed to Cleckheaton, and there's other areas like Home Firth, Dewsbury. They're all getting significant investment at a time when it's really challenging around finding that money to invest and repaying that capital back. Pre-car parking, that was an issue that was dealt with by my colleagues. So. Councillor Kendrick raised this, and I will genuinely have a conversation with officers and see whether there is any possibility of moving that 1.5 mil. We've already spent some of it, so it isn't 1.5 million anymore. So we've already spent some of that. We will have to look at the implications for that. I will ask the question, and we'll have a conversation, and we'll see. Don't forget, that only buys you with a bit more, it only buys you the immediate repairs for the health and safety issue. What it doesn't do, and Kath predicted this, it doesn't sort the revenue losses out that would be incurred. That still would have to be found from somewhere, and so somebody else's budget would have to fund those ongoing revenue costs, unless a group produced a really good plan that meant it either washed its face or it reduced those revenue costs significantly. Much has been made about setting the community up to fail. I don't want to set the community up to fail. I've done any number of these from a cabinet point of view, and I've been involved in many from the other side. I've been involved in doing one of the first ones we ever did under the new regime. So So I know how difficult it is, and that was like, well, it'll take us a few months. It took best part of 2 years because there were so many things that we didn't know about because it was the first one. But we've learnt a lot of lessons, so we can speed these processes up. I don't want to. The community can come together, and if they can't produce a plan, we would advise them that. We can work with locality. Sometimes you need to think out of the box. Can some of this space be let for a commercial organisation? Can you put something in there that's not there now? Do you, in effect, manage to put enough businesses in there to generate enough rent to have a centre, what you would almost call like a centre manager? So takes the emphasis away from volunteers, and you could just have a set of trustees who oversee a centre manager. It's about thinking out of the box, trying to have a bit of what we traditionally used to call sky blue thinking. What can be done? What opportunities lie in this building? So I don't want the community to fail. I want them to work together, work with us, work with the locality, and see what opportunities exist. What is a good business plan look like? How can we reduce the running costs, and how can we generate more income? There's pages, isn't there? There wasn't any public consultation, absolutely right. This is a decision that was been in making for the last, 2 years now, so that it wasn't an issue that went up for public consultation. We have kept in touch with both the ward members and the MP about the progress on preparing this report. No, I didn't say it was consultation. I said that. I reiterate what I said. There has been no public consultation. We have engaged with the ward members and the MP during this process. So I absolutely accept that. I think that's pretty much covered all the questions. So I will leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I did before, so I will let members come back with a supplementary if they have one. Kath Pinnock.
Yeah, a couple of quick comments, I think. I'm looking forward to the visit. I hope we will, as ward members, be invited at the same time. Yes, good. So that's excellent, right? So that's the first thing. That's a tick, right? Secondly, just the capital plan. Many moons ago when I was leader of the council, we did have made sure that there was capital expenditure for all the town halls. And because I was a Cleckheaton member, I said, well, Cleckheaton maybe should be last on the list. That was perhaps my trying not to be selfish, and so the money had run out by the time we get to Cleckheaton. So that was the first one. Then a later administration, I can't actually remember which one it was, but I think it was a Labour one, had another stab at capital investment in the town halls, and guess what? When they got to Cleckheaton, the money had run out again. So there have been 2 iterations of capital investment in the town halls, both of which Cleckheaton has missed out on, and that you can check back. Those are the facts, and that's why it's in not as good a state as it should be now. Second question about the footfall. I'm not talking about officers being in the town hall. Those days are gone. But what we do have in Cleckheaton is the U3A used that building 5 days a week, morning and afternoon. And that's what brought footfall into the town. They had 500-600 members, one of the largest in Kirklees, and now they're down to 250, I think I was told. Yeah, yes. So yes, thank you. Yes, so it was a huge benefit to the town, and then the concerts and plays and drama and so on that went in every weekend. I can tell you, I've seen the diaries, except January and from July to the end of August. That town hall was full. Now, no other town hall is like that, and this is the one you want to close. And that's brought people into having doing a bit of shopping or going to the cafes or restaurants, and that's what has kept our town hall going. The only other thing I think I want to say is I've not had an answer about this core asset, which I think is critical. I want to know what is a core asset, because then I will know what else you've got your eyes on. And no, I'm serious. If councils are going to be just about discrete service delivery, we're not a local government anymore. What we're about is discrete service delivery. If we're about local government and local governance and about resilient communities, then we're about places like Cleckheaton Town Hall. And I want to know which it is. Because that, to me, is a critical decision that seems to be being made under the radar. And I want to hear probably from the leader of the council which it is. So I know what vision you've got for local government in our area. And then I'll know what I need to do.
Thank you, Kath. I will come back on that later, but is there any other supplementary questions from the members? Councillor Paul Moore and then John Lawson.
I suppose as a new councillor, I'm shocked how a report like this can come to Cabinet with no previous outline conversations with the community or elected members, as affirmed by Councillor Turner. So I suppose my question is a little bit negative, but in spite of what I've seen in Dewsbury over the last 3 months, I think it could come to pass. So the question is the lack of consultation with the wider community, the rushed and unrealistic timelines, and the huge funding needed to be achieved is a huge barrier to the success of this project. Is this report just a vehicle to close Cleckheaton Town Hall by the back door?
Councillor John Lawson.
Just on the preferred option, option 5, there's nothing there, in my view, to attract a group to come forward. There's only the prospect of basically chasing money through council that may or may not exist, chasing money through grants and what have you that are completely the prospects, you know, they're not really existent at the moment. So there's a lot of speculation in what you're asking people to do. It's a big leap of faith that you're asking for the community to do here, with nothing on the other end of the equation. There's nothing tangible for them to go, okay, that's where the council trusts us. That's what they want to do with us. And I think I'd like to hear more of that, and I'd like to hear more of that reflected in the decision today.
Councillor Smage.
Thank you. If you have said, Councillor Turner, that you will give people, any group, plenty of time, as long as they're making progress. You've said you'd look at the funding, etc. But the recommendations before you, the wording of them, do not say that. And therefore it is, are you going to put into your recommendation what you have said you will look at, so that that is the decision going forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smage. If that's everybody's comments, before I ask Councillor Turner to come back and to respond to those and to sum up on this item, I will just respond to the question asked of me by Councillor Pinnock. I think I have given my whole life over to local government, and I'm not going to stop now. I mean, I have worked in and around local government and the voluntary sector from an age I can't remember. So I certainly won't be giving up now. And nor, must I say, is the new Labour government. They have recognised that local government is the delivery arm of most, if not all, government decisions, and are promising, and we haven't got the money yet, but they are certainly promising to fix the foundations and to ensure that local government can deliver what we need to for local people. And I certainly will be holding them to that. The reason we're in the position that we are at the moment, as we all well know, is that since 2010, there was a government in control who did not believe in local government. They did believe in the decimation of local government, and that local services should be absolutely at an absolute basic level, and certainly didn't include any of the sort of things that you're talking about in terms of the well-being of our communities, as much as it is about their health and safety, or even the ability of cars to move around on the road. So certainly, I do not believe that local government is about just discrete services. No, it is far, far more than that, and I will do everything I can within my power to make sure that we do return. And it is a question of do return, because we're not in that position at the moment, absolutely not, and I recognise that. We have had so many millions. I mean, if we had had the millions over the last 14 years that we had in 2009 or 2008 to spend on all our services, they would be superb now, wouldn't they? But they're not. And we hope to to do something about that in a relatively short space of time. But I'll hand over to Councillor Turner to talk on this particular point.
Sorry, you did say you were going to respond to what is the core asset.
I'm not sure either what actually we mean by a core asset. When I presume that there is a core asset in which we need to deliver our services from, but no, we do recognise there's other assets besides those assets that we do have staff in.
Right, sorry, I'm back on Emma. Right, sorry. Several people have come back about a timeline. I can assure you, you have my word that in this building, which is now live on the internet, so it's there for posterity, that we will give sufficient time for anybody who comes up with, who looks like can develop a credible plan. We will give them sufficient time to develop that plan. As I say, you have my word on that. Whether we can we put a line in to that effect? So we'll put a line into that effect, so that it's there in black and white as well as being in the Great Wide Web. It'll be in black and white in the report. We will ensure. Why would we want someone who's come up with a credible idea or working towards a really positive plan? Why would we stop them? No, we wouldn't. Of course, we wouldn't do that. No sensible person would. So we will do that. Just going back to some interesting. It's always great when people quote facts in a meeting where you can't check them, isn't it? They sound great. So. And I might go back and ask officers to look at this. So we've been closed approximately 2 years now, in effect. We had 500-600 people footfall. And I need to probably go back to officers speak. Has there been a significant impact on the businesses within the town centre? We need to know that. We need to know if there's been a significant impact on the town centre. So somebody will have to do a bit of research on that for me, because that would be interesting to know. Whether that has had an impact, and that will help determine whether the conversation probably around the possible 1.5 million, or less the money we've already spent on that. We told it was well loved and well used, and it was full, and yet it still lost a significant amount of money. So perhaps that's one question again we need to probably look at in detail. Is if it was being so well used, if it was full so often, lots of things going on there, why did it have a huge revenue loss every year? I need to look at.
All town halls lose money.
Can I please finish? Let me finish. We were I'm quoting figures. Somebody said it was the most successful and most well-used town hall in Kirklees. So all I want to do is check whether the losses there are comparable with what we lose from other town halls. Is there a reason it was losing less? Is there a reason it was losing more? Can those revenue costs be reduced in any way? Why were we losing so much money in it? What can we do if it's so well used? Were we putting the wrong events on? Were we not charging enough? I think there's a piece of work to be done around that, and I'll get that research done as well. And the whole point of this report and option 5 is that we don't want it to close. Otherwise we wouldn't put option 5 in. We could have gone and announced it surplus to requirements and closed it. We want to find a way forward if at all possible, and that's by working with the community. As I say, why would we put option 5 in and be supporting option 5 if we wanted it to close? And I get it's challenging, and I know it's going to be difficult, but you know, if you don't try, nothing happens, does it? We've got to have a go at this, and we'll work with residents to try and make this an absolute success. But as I said, we absolutely wanted to stay open. Unfortunately, it cannot be totally under the guise of the council anymore. We haven't got the revenue funding, we haven't got the capital to fund it. But this may be an alternative solution if we can have a bit of blue sky thinking, what can we do with it? How can we use it better? How can we generate income? How can we reduce those revenue costs? That's why I'm going to again recommend option 5 for Cabinet to approve this afternoon.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Can I just say that I think option 5 is yes, where we would like to see us going, but I mean, as Councillor Turner's already said, the timescales in the report are not restrictive. We certainly won't be saying if you don't come to us by X date that we won't be doing anything. I think there is some elements of option 2 that can be encompassed into it, but not specifically to say that we will do option 2 before we move to option 5. We really want to start to find out from the community exactly what it is that we can and should be providing in Cleckheaton. So it is option 5, but that doesn't rule out any of the work on the health and safety items at some point when we are assured that there is a reasonable chance of maintaining some community involvement in that building. Before I go on, I'll let Councillor Kendrick come in.
Chair, if we could add to option 5 with something that says with some flexibility of time and for consideration to be given to whether there's a possibility of use of the town and village funding allocated already, particularly as what councillors are in unison about that. If we added that in, it gives the potential for us to move it forward in perhaps a better way.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick. I mean, I presume you would agree with that, Councillor Turner. I mean, I think that's what we've certainly been talking about. That town and the town's money. I mean, that would need to be discussed, obviously. But there's no reason why we can't open those discussions. So, can Councillor Turner, will you move that as amended? I mean, we haven't exactly. Sorry.
I've already moved it.
But with those amendments. Yeah. Thank you. Is that seconded? Thank you, Beverly. Can I see those in favour, please? Thank you. So that's cut. That is passed. Thank you. We will move on now to item 10, which is the budget. I'll just give. I should say the proposed budget. I will continue the meeting now. Agenda item 10, which is the council budget report, which sorry, I missed, where am I going? Yeah, council budget report incorporating capital, treasury management, general fund, revenue and housing revenue account. Councillor Turner.
Chair, thank you. We seem to have lost his audience. So thank you.
No.
Thanks to Councillor Cooper for keeping us company. Oh no, you're not. Sorry. This is the draft budget, and restate that the draft budget for 25-26, and the contents of today's report, as I mentioned earlier, are for consultation with the public and our partner organisations. As we will not receive the final settlement from government until the 19th of December, we cannot produce a final budget until after that date. We also need to wait for the outcome and comments from the consultation before any final decisions of the budget is made. The input from the public and partner organisations are a really important process in the formulation of a final budget. The consultation will be launched on the 11th of December and will run until the 15th of January. So, this draft budget does have some assumptions. However, they are based on our experience and expectations of what the final settlement will look like. We do believe that they are reasonably accurate, as has been proved over the years. I think somebody mentioned this earlier. We have seen some extra funding from government in recent weeks, which recognises the fact that we've been traditionally underfunded and that we have challenges with rising demand and levels of inequality and deprivation that need addressing. After the years of constant underfunding of Kirklees, it's nice to see a government that recognises the important role of local government and is starting to reverse the damage done over the last few years. However, this can't be done overnight and will take some time. So it would be nice to have a bit of a Christmas present from Rachel, but I suspect that the government won't give us a huge amount of money extra, since we've already received some, but you never know. Let's live in hope. The Cabinet will then have to having taken into consideration the results of the consultation, the final settlement, prepare a final budget proposal early next year, which will be presented at full council on the 3rd of March. I do hope that if I'm sat here next year that we will see the current inequalities in local government funding to have been recognised and a new fairer system of funding local government will have been introduced. The current discredited system sees Kirklees receiving an estimated 20 million less to spend under the current funding formula. We know that some of our near neighbours have a higher spend per head than we do, yet they do not have the levels of deprivation and face some of the challenges that we do have here in Kirklees. Hopefully, if Cabinet agrees this draft budget, it will then, as I previously said, go out for consultation, as these are simply proposals at this moment in time. And I would encourage the public to get involved and read the budget and then provide us with meaningful feedback. Apologies to Kevin. I know this is not the most riveting read in the world for most people, but unless people read it and look at the details and the pressures we must deal with, it will be difficult to make meaningful comment. And I genuinely want to see meaningful comments. This, after all, affects every resident of Kirklees. It's challenging and time-consuming to produce a draft budget, as we have so many statutory services that we must deliver, and we need to ensure that they are given sufficient funds within the budget. But as we've seen in recent years, many things in year can affect the spending plans of the council. The most difficult to predict has been the continued rise in demand we have seen in dealing with things like adult social care, growing issues of homeless residents and the cost of living crisis, and the increase in sense spending. These increased pressures do mean that the scope of what I call the discretionary spend is reduced. As we spend more on the statutory services, this does mean that we have to be more efficient and must transform services to ensure a balanced budget. Of course, this does mean that we cannot always do everything we would like, as we're unfortunately had to discuss today, or the public would like us to do. But we must ensure that we protect those most in need and the most vulnerable in our communities and meet the statutory obligations and produce a balanced budget. Finally, I would like to thank Kevin and the team for producing this budget. As I say, it's not an easy task, it's a hefty tome, and to produce it in ready for today's meeting has been a challenge. As I said, there has been changes in the last few weeks, so I know there's been redrafting and going. So thank you very much to Kevin and all his team for delivering that. So, Chair, can I ask the Cabinet to approve this budget ready for consultation?
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I think there's two people behind you waving. I'll ask Andrew Cooper to speak first.
I differ from Councillor Turner's view that it's not a riveting read. And I just want to say that. And the reason for that is that I heard Carol Patterson earlier, the leader, earlier on say that there's no funding going towards reserves, but as you will see, the proposal is to on page 159 of the report, where it says about the additional funding that we've got coming in, that additional funding be directed in order towards reduce the budget contribution from reserves that underpin the proposed budget, and additional funding to unallocated reserves which have been used to reduce the 24-25 overspend. Now, I get from a point of view of an officer that's a good use of money, and bolstering up our reserves, which are low, is a good thing to do. That's what good finance directors would be recommending, that what you do. My thoughts on that are that for a long time this council has not been a politically led council, and for many years it was not a politically led council, and that particular councillor is no longer a councillor, but for many years we had somebody in charge who didn't really have a political agenda, which I think was a lack of, it was something that this council lacked. And I want to see people, even if it's with things that I disagree with, driving the organisation and what it's about. So I guess the question here is really about what demonstrates that you're a politically led organisation rather than an officer-led organisation, and one that's looking at where you've got some really clear objectives that are driving you forward. I mean, I've mentioned earlier on tonight the issue of the dementia care homes and what's going on there, and if it's something that you care about and you don't believe in privatisation, then that's something you put money towards. So I'm struggling a wee bit here to see where the political drive from the council is, and what things you will do differently rather than simply take the money and use it to bolster reserves, or other things just carry on pretty much the same as they were.
Sorry, before you come back, Councillor Turner, Councillor Smage has got a question, I believe.
Thank you. I'd like to know how you're going to consult on this, because previously it's been a set of questions that you've asked members of the public, and that hasn't been widely advertised across Kirklees. So with this draft proposal that you've got here today, how are you going to run that consultation so that people are aware of what the different figures in the budget proposal actually mean? I mean, I already have a list of questions a mile long. So how are you going to ensure that you consult widely and give explanations as to what things mean in that consultation? Thank you.
Councillor Turner, would you like to respond?
Yeah, the consultation will be run, no doubt, through our comms department. I have no knowledge yet of what their plans are. That's my job is to produce a budget, and then they'll consult on it, get it out there for consultation. It's always a challenge. As I said earlier, it's a hefty tome. How you consult with people. The time frames aren't great neither, because we have to have this back early January, and we've got Christmas in the way. So as I say, it's always difficult. When do you consult? How do you reach people? And you never quite. I don't think we ever quite get it right. I think we get it pretty right sometimes, but sometimes we don't always get it right. But we'll make every effort to get the feedback from the public, etc. Councillor Cooper and reserves. The problem being is our reserves are low, and you're right, we did get some money from government. What we've got to bear in mind is that we need to bolster our reserves where we can, because they are low, and I think that's been recognised by some external organisations at the moment. So we need to bolster our reserves. No, I don't believe in privatisation. Never did, never will. Unfortunately, sometimes needs must, and nothing. And I sat here, and there were the people sat there, and you know, they nearly had, you know, not quite in tears, but I was incredibly moved by the passionate speech they proposed, and I wouldn't. And thankfully, I'm not in their shoes. I really wouldn't want to be in their shoes. They've got huge challenges with ill relatives, and this is happening, and it's not great, and it's terrible that we have to do this, and it damn well near breaks my heart anyway. So, but that's the needs most, I'm afraid. People make worse decisions up and down the country on a daily basis. Because this money came through, we can't guarantee it's not in the, it'll be in the base budget next year. And if it's not in the base budget, we have to treat it as a one-off payment. So if we used it, and this is, the reality is, despite what anybody will tell you, the reality is the money to keep the care homes for next year was a one-off wodge of money that came from government that was used to fund it. And I was involved, well, I wasn't involved in the decision to spend it. My conversations afterwards were, is this going to be in the base budget next year? And the then leader said, no, we can't guarantee it, but we believe it will. I said, but you can't, why are we spending money to keep something open that we may well have to look to dispose of? And that's the danger of spending your base without it being guaranteed in the base budget. You just create a problem further down the line, Andrew. And until we get a guarantee of what our base budget's like to be, we will continue, no doubt, having to make difficult and challenging decisions. It's about that base budget being guaranteed, knowing what we can spend year on year, rather than, and in some ways I'm a little bit disappointed because this is the previous government's tactic, drip feeding money, and I'm really pleased that they have given us some money, but I do think we need a long-term settlement so we know where we are, what our base budget is going to be moving forward, and that allows us to plan easier. But that is my opinion at this moment in time.
Councillor Hawkins.
Leader, I want to come back on Councillor Cooper's point about political leadership. I think the leader of the council sort of earlier outlined what her ambition and our ambition as a cabinet is. But as a fact that you frequently quote and are correct on, we are a minority council. This budget does go out to, minority administration. This budget is out for consultation. And for this to become policy, it requires the majority of this chamber to vote for it. So you are an active partner in that leadership, that political discussion that we're going to have. We've already, I mean, certain members have left the chamber now, but we've already had indications from one particular group that they are not going to participate in the consultation and are against even the thought of a budget coming next year. I think every single member of this chamber needs to recognise that they are an active participant in it, and by hopefully by your contributions you'll be able to help us find the money that we've been struggling to find, Councillor Cooper. But no, please do take the opportunity to engage fully in the consultation, and I hope every member of this council does.
Thank you, and I will just add a very quick comment that I do believe that certainly this cabinet is trying to provide some political leadership to the officers. I do believe that officers have, well, we've worked with officers to set some political objectives which they've used alongside this budget setting exercise to come to decisions which are not only acceptable to ourselves as a Labour administration, but as Councillor Hawkins says, we do recognise that there are other parties in the chamber who we would want to support our budget. We do have to be practical. I do believe in practical politics as well as ideological politics, perhaps I should say, and therefore we have this consultation process, which we will make sure is as extensive as possible. We have gone earlier this year, I mean, than we have in recent years, to be able to give people the opportunity to understand the detail that's in there, rather than asking sort of blanket questions. Of course, if we ask people whether they want to spend more on this or more on that, they'll always say yes, but they'll never tell us what they're not prepared to spend on. I have to, and having said that, I have to say that there are some things in these proposals that have not seen the light of day and will not see the light of day. But it is there for consultation with everyone. Thank you. So, Councillor Turner, is there any last thoughts, comments you wish to make?
I just want to reiterate, this is a draft budget. It is out for consultation. As you rightly point out, some of the things in here will not happen. Some things will be no doubt added. We need to get beyond the 19th, see exactly what figure we're getting from government. But as I said, it is a draft. It is for consultation. The final version will be significantly different in certain areas. I am absolutely sure of that.
Okay, so thank you. Is that moved, Councillor Turner, by yourself, the recommendation? Yes. Is that seconded? Yes, it seems it's seconded. Thank you very much. Can I see a vote in favour? Thank you. So that's passed. We now have got, I'm afraid, 4 more items. So I will now quickly move on to the item 11, which is the housing revenue account, rent and service charge, inflationary uplift, and HRRA budget. Councillor Crook.
Thank you, Chair. So this report under item 11 identifies a proposed rent and service charge increase of 2.7% for social housing for the 2025-2026 tax year, in line with government guidelines. It also identifies additional service charge increases for communal ground maintenance and for service charges in our extra care homes to cover costs. In addition, delegated authority to resolve historic undercharging in both our district heating and sheltered communal heating is requested. The housing revenue account budget and capital plan are proposed for recommendation to Council as part of the budget. I absolutely recognise that any increase in costs can be difficult for our tenants, especially as we continue to see cost of living pressures exceeding incomes for many. We have to balance this against our firm commitment to improve our housing in line with, and in many cases ahead of, regulatory requirements to ensure that all of our tenants have warm and efficient, dry, safe and decent homes to live in. We can only maintain this ambition if our charges keep pace with our costs, many of which have increased well in advance of inflation in recent years. This set of proposal represents a balanced budget for the ring-fenced and self-financing housing revenue account over the 30-year timeframe of our business plan, in line with mandatory requirements. I propose we accept the recommendations here as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. Any comments from members of the Cabinet here? There's no other members left.
I'm just going to second it.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Please, could you show vote of... thank you. That's passed.
This is really for noting, as you well know, Cabinet and the leadership team, senior leadership team, have discussed this and are working on ways to bring the overspend down. As is often the case, this report was prepared at a point in time, and since it was compiled, we have an update on month 7. We as Cabinet will continue to seek out savings and work with the SLT to try to get the overspend down before the year end. Rising demand and services are a constant pressure, and we will do all we can to mitigate these demands, which put increased pressure on what is a very tight budget this year. Chair, please, can I have it to please accept and note this report?
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Is that seconded, Councillor Kendrick? All those in favour? Thank you. Moving on to item 14, the corporate risk quarterly report 24-25. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Leader. Please try to second it after I've finished speaking, though. Don't get too ahead of the game. Move for noting the Q2 Council Plan and Performance Update Report on our progress in meeting our priorities. This report clearly outlines our performance in delivering the services to our residents depend on. I want to thank the officers for their time and efforts in assembling this report and working across the Council. I had a bit in here saying I was happy to take any questions, but I think everybody's just keen to crack on, aren't we? So I wish to move it for noting, Leader.
Thank you. That's seconded, Councillor Pinnock. Or was that a question? Seconded, right? Okay. All those in favour, thank you. That's carried. So the last item then on the agenda is the annual...
Two more.
Have I?
That was 13.
No.
You said 14. You said 14.
Did I say have I missed 13?
You said 14. He replied to 13.
There's two more. It's
Oh.
all right. It's 14 now.
It's 14 now. God, sorry, beg your pardon.
14 now.
14 now. Councillor Hawkins.
14, thank you. Again, moving on in Q2 report on risk management. The report outlines the monitoring risks to this council, and we have seen some positive reductions to a number of risks relating to data insight in adult social care, industrial action following the 2024 local government pay award, and children's safeguarding following our good Ofsted rating for our children's services. Once again, want to thank the officers for their time and effort in assembling this report and working across all departments of the council. Happy to move this report for noting.
Seconded.
All those in favour? Thank you. Right, finally, now, item 15, annual Reaper update. Councillor Hawkins.
Saving the best for last, lovely stuff. Moving a report on the use of Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act 2000, last reported September last year. RIPA provides strategic oversight to and to keep the council's use of surveillance under review. There have been no incidents which have required RIPA to be used. God, you've already shut off the Teams call there as well. No incidents requiring RIPA to be used over the past year. The report does identify training which will be taking place Q2 of next year. Once again, thank you to the officers for pulling this together for information. Thank you.
Is that seconded? Yes, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. That's passed. Thank you. That is the end of the meeting. Thank you.